Peterson, weekdays 2 to 6 on 1620 The Zone. Your Omaha area forecast from the Godfather's Pizza Weather Center and KETV News Watch 7.
Dense fog advisory to start Wednesday. Watch out for areas of reduced visibility during the morning drive. Otherwise, expect mostly cloudy skies, cool with highs in the low to mid 50s. I'm meteorologist Sean Everson from KETV News Watch 7.
1620 The Zone. Traffic.
From the Pyramid Roofing Time-Saving Traffic Center. Good morning. Hope your Wednesday is off to a great start. If you are heading out early hours here, no major delays on the roads right now from any traffic accidents or traffic buildup. But be advised that there is a chance of some fog this morning that will reduce visibility. But for now, things looking good. Just stay safe and wear that seatbelt. I'm Peter Krenzer.
This time-saving traffic was brought to you by Romeo's Mexican Food and Pizza.
Not your typical restaurant, not your typical place. Romeo's, not your typical restaurant, not your typical taste. Romeo's, Romeo's Mexican Food and Pizza. Not your typical restaurant.
It's homecoming week, and Omaha hockey is back at Baxter Arena. Join us Friday and Saturday at 7:07 when the Mavs host Western Michigan to start NCHC play. Secure your seat and enjoy the homecoming festivities now at omavs.com/ticks. This year's Omaha Athletic Hall of Fame inductees will be recognized at Saturday's game, and Maverick fans of all ages can enjoy the homecoming festivities all weekend long. Get your tickets now at omavs.com/ticks.
I'm Taylor Bishotti with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. There have been 19 players traded in the NFL this season, third highest in the last 30 seasons, with the Washington Commanders making the biggest splash before Tuesday's trade deadline. NFL Network insiders Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport reporting the Commanders acquired corner Marshawn Lattimore and a 2025 fifth-round pick from the Saints in exchange for a third, fourth, and a sixth-round pick in 2025. The Steelers sent a 2025 fifth-round selection to the Jets in exchange for veteran wideout Mike Williams. The Steelers also sent a seventh-round selection to Green Bay for Packers edge rusher Preston Smith. Elsewhere, the Cowboys traded a 2025 fourth-round pick to the Panthers for wideout Jonathan Mingo and a 2025 seventh-round selection. And the Lions acquired Browns defensive end Zadarius Smith plus a 2026 seventh-round pick in exchange for a fifth-round pick in 2025 and a sixth-round pick in 2026. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
All right, gentlemen, this is Emmett Smith on behalf of Depend, and I've got the perfect play. Run straight to your doctor's office for a life-changing catch. Because when prostate cancer is caught early, it's up to 99% treatable, and one blood test might be all it takes. And now through November, Depend is donating to the Prostate Cancer Foundation for select purchases. Talk about a great play.
From September 1st to November 30th, Depend is donating 40 cents to the Prostate Cancer Foundation for Depend Shield Guards Real Fit products purchased in the U.S. up to a maximum of $300,000 void in Mississippi.
Are you a parent of a 2 to 8-year-old? Listen closely for an exciting offer, then head to abcmouse.com/radio to learn more. By now, you've probably heard of ABC Mouse.
ABC Mouse is like a little one-on-one teacher. It has helped her so much.
We're offering a promo at abcmouse.com/radio to try it for free for a month, then $14.99 per month until canceled. Go to abcmouse.com/radio to see this offer. That's abcmouse.com/radio. Actual ABC Mouse users compensated for their testimonials, sponsored by Age of...
You've got a Pepto predicament, moviegoer.
Hey, I can hear your stomach grumbling.
Sorry, I ate that entire tub of popcorn with extra butter.
You overdid it, and now your movie has turned into a blockbuster bellyache. Undo it with Pepto.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Pepto Chewables provide fast 5-symptom relief, so you can focus on the action on the big screen instead of in your stomach. When you overdo it, undo it with Pepto. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that we can give our daughters everything they need to grow and learn. But not every child can focus on classes and play dates.
Nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. face hunger. That's 1 in 6. School lunch might be their only meal each day, and it's heartbreaking to imagine any child going to bed hungry. We're dreaming of a perfect day when kids can smile, play, and just be kids without worrying about where their next meal will come from. Feeding America is working to make that perfect day a reality.
Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. That food is given to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about doing things that make an ordinary day extraordinary. Learning to play an instrument, building a sandcastle, hosting tea parties, Hunger should never be an obstacle to growing up.
You can help end childhood hunger in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Calling all college basketball fans to downtown Las Vegas. Join your team when they travel to Las Vegas this November as Circa Resort and Casino celebrates Hoops Giving. Circa has discounted rooms all week long for fans from Omaha. When your team isn't on the court, join us at Stadium Swim with temperature-controlled pools and a 143-foot screen showing all the action, plus the world's largest sportsbook, drinks giving, and more. To book and find out everything about Hoops Giving, go to circalasvegas.com/hoopsgiving.
1620 The Zone. Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
Get your ass out of here.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome in. It is a hump day. It is the 6th of November. You know, we lament about breaking news that happens at 10:01 that we do not get to discuss.
Yeah.
Like, God dang it, Happer. Happer gets all the good breaking news. Well, and for people that stayed up late and are just getting up, this is not breaking news, but now it's official. About 90 minutes ago, Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States, so he'll be number 45 and number 47. So
first since Grover Cleveland.
Well, it's also so. Let's just say I think this is the first presidential election I gambled on. I couldn't believe the gambling.
Well, there wasn't much
that
sports
was going
last
on.
night.
Yeah, it was a.
You didn't want to get on the action last night?
It was a super quiet sports night.
Yeah.
Action was okay.
But I think I got more involved in gambling on politics this year than I ever have.
I should have.
And I got a tip from a friend who is in that world. He's not in the world of polling, so do not take it out on my friend.
Yeah,
I mean, now people can see how sports fans relate to the polling that goes on. All right, polling is yeah. But he said after the Des Moines Register poll came out, which is kind of like Dewey versus Truman.
Yeah.
He said, watch the overreaction on some of the gambling markets for the president of the United States. And he goes, if you get a good number, he goes, jump on that.
Ooh.
And so
all because of the Des Moines Register poll.
Well, he said because people are going to overreact.
Yeah, gotcha.
And he was like, he's I won't give him up, but he is in my world of I was a poli-sci minor. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I love the why. Like people will write books about why this happened and how we got to this point and all of that kind of stuff. And honestly, they don't know anything, okay? Because they always say, well, now the Democrats will need to do this and the Republicans will need to do that, and they probably do the complete opposite. But I like the why part. That's the poli-sci minor in me that I get into. But he was like, hey, he goes, I'm not really sure on the polling. He goes, the polling numbers have been wrong for multiple elections. He goes, I'm not buying it here. But he was giving me gambling advice. He goes, watch that market. If you get a number you like, he goes, jump on that.
Well, I was curious.
In 4 years, I'm with you. I'll make some money on this.
Hey, red, blue, no definition. It wasn't even close.
I was curious if you could, go state by state, get better odds, certain odds in certain states, and then really go after the big bucks there.
Yeah,
Nebraska's obviously laying on the red,
Texas, same.
The only access I had was
Pennsylvania,
just the general overall. Yeah.
Oh, Pennsylvania, that could have been. There could have been some hot action there.
That's why, man. We should have sports people talk about politics and talk about the polls and how they're wrong. But welcome in, everybody. What a day in this country yesterday. Again, everybody that voted.
You find your sticker, Nick?
Nope. Never got one. And I know we weren't the only ones. I was talking to one of my neighbors, and they had a mail-in. They said they never got a sticker.
Yeah, I got some thoughts after voting yesterday. But I love this stuff. But I love the why, and there'll be a lot of why. And then we got to move forward. But the numbers are fascinating. I mean, I'm looking at numbers not only in the state of Nebraska, which we got our own issues around here. That we have to take care of and worry about. But I'm looking at like the fascinating numbers of cities and states and how they voted and compared to like the last two elections. But did you also see the interactions on X last night? And Elon Musk is
a big reason.
Oh, yeah.
Of why there was such a, I don't know, shift. I guess I'd call it a shift.
Sure.
There were 6 billion interactions on X yesterday.
Mm-hmm. And if you noticed when you would look in your, like, what's trending and everything, before you'd even get to what's trending, you would have the hashtag I voted for Trump. And then you saw, and all that was, supposedly paid for by the Trump organization, but you know who runs X. So it's like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. But I noticed that over the weekend too. And then it was a campaign. It wasn't actually what was currently trending. It was just a big campaign that was right at the top of your trending list. I noticed that yesterday. I noticed that on Saturday as well. So there was obviously a lot of influence by Mr. Musk on that.
The other thing about the gambling on the presidential election, we need mobile gambling in this state.
Yeah.
I know there's some things that are slow to get voted in this state that
Mm-hmm.
we're a little bit behind, but we need mobile gambling in Nebraska. I saw Missouri. I saw Missouri voted in gambling.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I might have to take back everything I've
Missouri
said.
had gambling. Maybe it's when I've been in Kansas that
they just didn't have mobile gambling, right?
Yeah.
No,
sports
I think
gambling and something like that.
Did Missouri have sports gambling? I thought I saw somebody was talking on. It might have been like not Newsmax, News Nation or something.
Okay.
I mean, I was scrolling through everything last night on TV. I think it is sports gambling in Missouri that got passed.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but we need mobile gambling here. Where's my man Bus? Bus needs to get off his butt in Vegas and get to Nebraska, and we need to get that taken care of. That's all I'm asking. Okay, I'm just a simple man. It happens to live in the greatest country on earth, and I just want some mobile gambling, okay? That's all I want.
Because I know where you went Friday before the meeting.
Yes, I went.
That's right.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
You amongst many, many people.
All right. Welcome in, everybody.
Inspiring.
It is Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy is here as well. The lineup brought to you by the referees at John Higgins Weather Guard. It was a quiet night in sports, but thank God Dana and Phil showed up yesterday in Lincoln, and Indiana showed up as people got to discuss Indiana football. Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Bender will join us from the Sporting News coming up at 8. Jay Moore stops by at 9 to try and figure out what happened against UCLA. What does the addition of Dana Holgorsen mean for the rest of the regular season? And what does Nebraska do moving forward as they get ready to take on USC next week? Brandon Vogel from CounterRead.com. That is the lineup brought to you by the referees at John Higgins Weather Guard. There is basketball tonight in town. Creighton opens up the post-Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman era as they take on UTRGV. Speaking of gambling, the line is 30.5.
Oh, more than
so the Nebraska line,
the
Nebraska line against UTRGV opened up at 23.5, and Nebraska did not cover.
Yep.
It opens at 30.5 tonight. The game that you'll hear the pre, the play, the post, all back here on 1620 The Jays.
Yeah, buddy.
You guys going to do some transitive property comparing of scores?
No.
Nebraska won by 20. What will Creighton win by? Isn't that how this works?
Well, I will be.
I'm new to this game.
If there is some, as a very popular phrase last night during the college football playoff unveiling, game control. I'll be curious on first half into early second half game control, because that wasn't necessarily a strength for Nebraska, but Nebraska obviously working through rotation, not making excuses for them. Because, and we talked about it yesterday, the 4.5 media, or 4.5, the 4-minute media was still relatively close between Nebraska and Grand Valley, or Jesus. UTRGV. Sorry.
Same difference.
Yeah, that team. But Rio Grande Valley. If Creighton is going into that 4-minute media, the final 4-minute media, and it's similar, I'm going to have a little bit more concerned about the old Blue Jays than I would with Nebraska, because I have higher expectations for Creighton than I do Nebraska.
That's fair. I think everybody does, unless you absolutely just hate Creighton. And you're not
you won't admit
a realistic person.
Yeah.
So speaking of the show last night on ESPN, which I imagine a lot of people watched, they just needed a respite, something to watch.
Yep.
How are we with the ESPN political jokes? It seemed like Reese Davis went all in on really
the numbers are in.
Spinning the political phrasing.
Yeah. God, the numbers are in. All the precincts have reported, all that fun stuff.
Then he rolled up the sleeves, took off the sport coat, was on the big board.
Yep. Let's try to be Carnacki.
Yeah, I got some thoughts on how they can improve that show. And I mean,
I got a suggestion. How about we find someone other than Joey Galloway?
Yeah, we need to find people that, like, you can tell they watch football.
Yeah, that's Joey Galloway when he was in the booth as well. Now on studio. At one point, I thought, oh, he's better in studio than he is in the booth. I retract that now too.
You got to be more than just the game you're covering. Like you have to be a super fan of college football.
Joel Klatt. There's one. That's my definition.
That's a guy I'm going to bring up
football sicko.
A little bit later because I think I have fixes for the TV show. I think I say this every year after the first one.
That makes sense.
But
and
it's
then they
still
don't do
hard.
It.
I still think it's hard to judge teams after 10 weeks for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have an elimination game, Alabama LSU this weekend, and then look at Georgia. Georgia has Ole Miss, and then they have Tennessee.
Yep.
So you're going to learn a lot more. I mean, BYU, Indiana, Tennessee, Oregon, who I think if Oregon wins this weekend, they clinch a spot, regardless of what happens the rest of the way. They play Maryland this weekend.
Can Notre Dame? Are we all comfortable?
Yes, because the TV wants them.
But okay, brand bias, which I think is part of this whole thing too. But
brands are big.
Whole thing is brand.
Brands are big.
Mm-hmm.
Logos are bigger.
Yep. What type of eyeballs do you draw for each one of your games? But okay, so what you just said there, Jimmy, I would agree. But Notre Dame, if there is teams behind them, like let's say LSU beats Alabama,
true, an SEC.
They probably jump. They probably jump Notre Dame.
Fat kid in dodgeball. Bama out.
If
2.5 point favorite,
if A&M beats Texas and they stay the course as a 2-loss team and that's it, could they jump Notre Dame? Now, here's the thing: if it comes down to Notre Dame and Texas A&M, then you got the head-to-head. Obviously, that's in Notre Dame's favor. I don't know. Notre Dame isn't. Out of all of it last night, because I wasn't surprised by the brand bias and what have you, but the Notre Dame part of it
could be in the Big Ten or the SEC. That's for sure,
big time. But the Notre Dame part of this is interesting.
That you live on.
Mm-hmm.
The Northern Illinois loss doesn't appear to impact Notre Dame at all.
No, that's probably the worst loss out of the entire group.
But sitting at 10, though, that's a little bit precarious.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying are we convinced that if Notre Dame wins out that they are still 100% safe?
Yes.
Okay.
They could be an 11. Or I think if Boise State wins out, Boise State shouldn't be the 12.
Could Notre Dame fall all the way back to a 12?
They could. But I think if they win out, they will be in. But they do have Army coming up who, I don't know, we'll talk more about that because there is I think when you release the first college football playoff rankings, they do tend to mirror the AP poll, and they kind of did last night. So we'll dive into that as we roll along till 10. I do have to mention this. I tweeted this out yesterday. I love voting on Election Day if I can. Some years I haven't been in town, so I get the mail-in ballot. I'm not opposed to that. I like driving to the Ralston Police Department and putting it in the box.
Oh, okay. Good on you.
No, that's where, like, closest to my house, like, is the Ralston Police. They have the drop box. Yeah. So I'm like, of all the places.
So same thing in off of Maple, 156 right across the Hy-Vee. You go to the municipal area where you do have the cop shop right there, and there's the mailbox.
Yeah, I thought, well, you know what? If you're ever wondering if it's safe or not, I mean, the cops are right there.
Right.
Yeah.
If there's someone following me and giving me grief for putting in a mail-in ballot, hey, I could be like, hey, officer, right over here. Yeah.
So I went and voted. So I like voting on Election Day, not just because of the sticker, which I understand from Sean. The stickers are larger in Sarpy County than they were in Douglas County.
That is true. I've known
better looking.
A while.
I just the ones at my place were just the generic. I voted today
with just a white circle and just said I voted in probably like dark blue.
Yes.
Yep. And then the other ones you get like half of the bottom half is red, the top half is white, and it's blue and red letters, and it's got stars on it.
Yeah, Douglas County, be better with the stickers in 4 years.
Yep.
Or let's see, we're going to vote.
Act like you care.
We're going to vote for a mayor here in a little bit. That'll be a lot of fun in this town. But my precinct is Mammal Hall on the Exarban campus of UNO. So I thought there's going to be a lot of people there, which is fine. I was prepared. Left, right after we got off the air, went over there, walked in, and there were like a lot of people there voting. I bet there were 30 people at one time voting. I stood in line for like 3 minutes.
Nice.
And as I tweeted this out, I thought it was really, really cool. And thank you to all the poll workers across the country that work on that day. But they would recognize, so there were a couple of, it looked like one was a high school, well, because her and her mom sat at my table to vote.
You guys got to vote at a table?
I'll tell you about that in just a minute.
This is interesting. It's like a lunch table.
Her mom, and then the daughter, who she looked like she might have been like a senior in high school, were in front of me, and really cool. The gentleman, he started some talk, and he goes, first time voter, and she excitedly said yes, and so they made a big announcement. So even the people that were voting stopped and they clapped and they cheered. And I thought that was pretty cool for somebody that was first time voting. So had little time, little wait. I go up and I hand my ID to the guy. What do you think he wants to start talking about?
Did you hear about Dana?
So what's Holgerson going to do? Did you hear about it? Is Phil Snow? Is he going to possibly team up with Tony? How's
He
that
does
going?
one of
Gary
these.
Sharp, great show today.
He does one of these. Well, he wanted to talk about the Huskers, but he had me confused with Greg.
Oh, with Greg.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ask how you're doing.
So, yeah. And then he said, I had UCLA game. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's just keep it moving. Okay, just keep it moving. But the guy wanted to talk.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then,
Good morning to that guy.
At our precinct, you still sign the book.
Yep.
So I was fired up to put my signature.
Yeah.
Here
did it match your
of the
ID?
list of things, because I'm honestly more shocked that people are shocked today, is how I look at the reaction around the country. But
talking about Dana.
So I signed my name.
Yeah.
And then the guy next to him, who, you have to tell him your address, and then the guy next to him gives him some serial number.
Yeah.
He goes, you know what our biggest problem is today? And so my ears perk up. I'm like, is this going to be content for the radio? He said, young people don't know how to sign their name.
Yep, I heard that in Arizona too. That was a huge problem in Arizona watching them yesterday.
What is going
Many kids
on?
don't even know how to tell time now.
So there was no one behind me, so it was not holding up the line. He said that the early voters yesterday, the younger crowd does not know how to sign their name. First of all, I don't know that they teach cursive writing anymore.
Right.
They do not.
Which I loved. That was great. The first day you got to write in cursive. Oh my gosh.
Figuring out how to do the LZ. Like, oof, this is hard.
But have you guys heard this? He said, we have had some issues today with younger voters not knowing how to sign their name.
Yep.
I'm like,
they asked for crayon.
Well, and think about, so I was following the same thing, watching some of the election results, and this would have been late afternoon, early evening before things first started coming in, and they said they were having a big Maricopa County out in Phoenix. They were having a huge problem with that, where something around 10,000 voters had to be turned away because of it.
Wow.
Or they're having issues with it because, and it's an interesting thought because, and again, they said younger voters. And I was thinking of,
we're just talking about signing your name,
right?
And that's easy.
Well,
just
think of what we didn't have growing up, what they all have now, what a lot of the younger voters have now, and that is
TikTok.
You're typically signing stuff on a screen, and you never really make it very accurate of what your name. You just give it like a little scribble, and so when you actually have to sign your name and it has to look somewhat identical to what is on your ID, you probably have no clue what to do because there's just no practice doing it.
Okay, I can see that because there's a lot of texting, and also if you're signing any documents nowadays, it's all it's all emailed.
Yeah, it's e-doc.
And so you do the
the
signature does it for you.
Yeah, DocuSign. Sorry,
that blew me away. I'm like, kids don't know how to sign their name.
Mm-hmm. DocuSign does it for you, and then you make a little line when you're signing your tab at the restaurant or the coffee shop. You're just like, no tip or tip, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that was
we've crippled our young voters with this technology.
On my list of things that probably were like yesterday.
Yeah,
that's kind of up there, is that the younger set doesn't know how to sign their name.
Nope. Like
maybe Peppa Pig
can
should
I
have spent an
do it
episode
all
on
in
it.
all caps?
Hey, we're all about
here?
that. We're all about the same age. Remember how excited you were?
Oh, yeah.
To the first thing you signed?
You know why?
And
Because
you practiced your
signature.
signature.
Because you thought you were signing an autograph. It was really cool.
Just
Like, I know how I felt when I get that baseball with a cursive signature. I can't wait to this. What's mine going to look like?
Avoid
But
the
you got
clap, Jimmy Dugan.
You got to make it look like it's your name, though, too. You took pride in it. You can tell it's me, but it's got some style to it.
Like a doctor.
Is that why a selfie of an athlete is better than the autograph?
Yeah.
Now we're gonna have athletes that know how to sign their name. They know how to take a picture and they know how to go.
Idiocracy. We covered this once. That's where we're headed.
Yep.
But the poll worker told me that,
I didn't know that was a thing in Nebraska.
I wanted to engage more, but I'm like, well, got to move on. And then he goes, make sure these signatures, by the way, are out at the bottom of your ballot. And then, so we had about I bet there were 30 people at Memo Hall that were voting at one time, which I thought was pretty cool. But he goes, you got to take that pen with you. And I'm like, no computers? And he's like, nope. He goes, I thought we were upgrading. Because then I felt like we were on a good level. We could just have some conversation. And again, I wasn't holding up the line. There was nobody behind me. And he's like, nope. He goes, here's your pen. So I went and sat at a round table with a couple other people.
That's
at the
weird.
table.
So you weren't
Did
in
you have
your
dividers?
You weren't, yeah.
Well,
you weren't
those
in your
were
little
full.
partition.
Those were full, but I mean, it's not like I was like sitting right next to him, like sneaking a peek.
Did you do this?
No.
Medical marijuana. Yes.
Pay attention to your own damn ballot.
No. So we still have the bubbles.
Are
you guys have the computer? Oh, you guys voted mail.
Yeah.
Scantron. Yeah.
Are you
Win bubbles?
Does anybody in the area have Scantron?
Do kids even know what Scantrons
in Florida,
are now?
when I voted, when I used to live full time in Florida, not recently voted in Florida.
Good save.
Which, by the way, Florida, their results of their election come back so much
split.
Yeah, because of the hanging Chad crap.
Yeah.
So they fixed that there.
Yep.
Does anybody around here do the Scantron? Or is it still everybody around here in Douglas and Sarpy County, you do the bubbles?
All I know in Douglas, I've only done the bubbles. So this was I did mail-in ballot for this, and then the governor race, which, what was that, 2 years ago? Yeah. So I did that, both mail-in. Everything else I've been in person, and it's always been filling in.
Okay.
And now the fill-in part, too, because
why do we have the punch thing?
I know. I
just
missed
like
the punching.
The old All-Star game ballots that you get at the ballpark.
The first time I ever voted was the punch thing, and I actually wasn't sure what I was doing.
NBA All-Star balloting.
But if you look at your ballot, man,
I needed that.
It's like when you're trying to teach a toddler to stay within the lines, because they really line shame you. Like, okay, now this is a no-no, and they show like a scribble outside the line, but this is acceptable. I start with the border and work my way in. I don't know if any of you guys start in the middle, then work your way to the border, but I think that's risky, because then
talking about
your
that,
chance of
by the way,
getting outside of the line there is much greater than starting on the outside of the line and working your way in.
So I have anxiety issues.
Because kids don't know how to sign their names?
No, I've like always had anxiety issues.
Oh, okay.
And so as I was sitting there and starting to fill in, because, I take this very seriously. I know what the issues are. I even, like some people that were running unopposed, I knew, who they were, what they stood for.
Did you vote for them?
Yeah.
You didn't write in anybody?
No, I didn't want to be a jabroni.
I kind of wanted to write in somebody.
But I had like flashbacks to when I was in school and we had to take Iowa basic skills. The Iowa test of basic skills.
What is that?
So
it's a standardized test.
So it's a standardized test in Iowa that you took every year. Now, y'all over here, I guess, have to take it in 8th grade.
Yeah, I was going to say, we didn't do that annually.
We had to do it, I think, beginning in 3rd grade in Iowa.
Second.
But the bubbles, and then also it brought back flashbacks of how much I hated taking the ACT.
Oh, yeah. I took it 3 times.
Twice.
Yeah.
Well, I only took it twice.
One hungover.
18 the first. Well, I was in between on the one that, ironically, I scored the highest on, but 18 on the first one. I'm like, we can do better.
Same.
I got a 23.
24 was my best.
26.
I went 18, 21, 24. So if I would have taken it a 4th time, God only knows.
26 hungover, 17 not hungover.
I could have cost my parents a lot less money. I mean, I was only trending up, but again, we had a long night. Just showed up. There's something about overthinking it. I just didn't overthink it.
Yeah.
I was already athletic scholarship available at 18.
Yeah.
So now it's just like on house money, baby. It's like if Nebraska would have beat UCLA, bye week, 3 games left, you're on the house money. You don't know where you might go.
Nice.
Only up, though.
When I don't mean to be morbid here, but before my mom passed away, we had this long discussion about like memories that made us laugh.
Yeah.
And I said, you remember when you thought that I cheated on the ACT when I got a 24? I go, I did not appreciate the lack of support.
She thought you cheated?
She goes, "There's no way you got a 24."
Oh, so
and I'm like, "Mom,
this is
like that was," and I was like excited. I was like, I was like asking other people, like, "Is 24 good on the ACT?" Because
is good.
I
It
got
is
like
very
I
good.
got like an 18 my first time, and I guess that if you jump that high, they
question.
suspect cheating.
Oh yeah,
But I like it was more. I didn't get as bored. Like the first time I took the ACT, like by the end, like the towards the end of the test, like the last couple of pages, I was bored,
Yeah.
and so I just started.
Going
I just
C,
remember
C.
somebody. I remember somebody that I went to school with telling me if you just fill in C, you're still going to get
Summer
So
school.
I just filled in C, but then I got a 24.
That has
and
actually been proven, at least during that time,
Yeah.
has been proven to be accurate.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the 24. I opened the letter, and she's like, "Ha ha ha ha." And I was like,
Thanks, Mom.
wow. You know that I said, "You know that I came out of you." Okay,
Yeah, you
know,
made me.
Yeah, so that's partially on you.
I've
that I'm
got
not
your
very smart.
DNA in here.
Yeah.
This is one of the best ones though, and I don't want to out him because I don't know if he'd love me.
Statute of limitations.
Well, he's a great man. I don't know if he'd love me bring his name up as a teacher in this moment, but we were, it was, and you always know the day that everybody got their ACT results, because that's all everybody's talking about in their school. Like, oh yeah, what'd you, oh yeah, I got this. So we had a female, I don't know like what she, as far as what her GPA was and everything, but she asked a lot of questions. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
I felt awful. So we're going over some of our scores, and she goes, "I got a 13. Is that how is that? That's probably not good, is it?"
It's Danny Marino's number.
And this teacher started laughing and goes, "The chimp got a 12." She started bawling.
Wow.
Man, the 90s were different.
And then he went on to say, "I think you get 7 points just for putting your name correctly."
Wow. Do we know what she's doing these days?
Please tell me she's in politics
I do
or
not
something.
know.
Can we look her up on Facebook?
Her first name's Stephanie.
Morning, Stephanie.
Of course it is. That's the default name.
I can't wait to tell you who this teacher. You know this teacher, by the way.
What sport does he coach?
Coach 2 sports:
So baseball and football?
football and basketball.
I'll figure it out.
Yep.
I'll figure it out.
Yep.
All right. When we come back, so yesterday the news out of Lincoln that we've all had a chance to digest and look over numbers of Dana Holgerson's offense at the multiple places that he has been, was yesterday's edition on the offensive side of the ball for Matt Rule, Marcus Satterfield, or Glenn Thomas with an extra set of eyeballs for the remainder of the regular season. Was it a addition that benefits Matt Rule, Marcus Satterfield, or Glenn Thomas? That and much more. Plus, we will talk about NFL trade deadline. Happened yesterday. Yeah, quiet day in sports.
Good for sneaky good for the Steelers, though.
Yeah, Mike Williams. They didn't give up much.
And you get a pass rusher as well.
Sorry, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh Peterson's team continues their ways.
You've already given up on the Cowboys?
Who?
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Gundy's given up on the Cowboys.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
You're
And the
joining
fans.
the front runner crowd. You can always join the conversation if you were not able to get in yesterday about what happened in Lincoln. Plus, we'll talk about Lincoln Riley as well and the word luck. 402-951-1620. That is the 42 Degree The Source hotline. Also, you can email Nick and myself on the Equitable Bank inbox where they take banking personally. Gary at 1620thezone.com.
Handley at 1620thezone.com. I already got people guessing on who the coach was.
Is he still coaching?
No.
No? Is he retired?
Yeah, technically.
Jesus, Petito didn't coach basketball.
No, it was not. I wasn't at Miller North either.
At the J-Tech Construction Zone Twitter feed, Dan McLaughlin, he's back coaching. Oh!
I don't know.
Down the street.
I don't know.
Oh!
I can't tell you.
Omaha North, Elkhorn South. Great game Friday night. The J-Tech Construction Zone Twitter feed at Gary Sharp 1620.
At Nick Handley 1620.
All right, we're off and running. It's a Creighton game day here on the Zone, UTRGV. Max going into his 15th year. 15th year.
Wow.
There's very few guys that, I mean, look at Tony Bennett. Mac is in a rare group of coaches that have been at their same school for that long of a period. 6:36. Take a break. Come back with more as we're off and running. Bill Bender, Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy is here as well on a Monday, a hump day. Back to sports. Full sports slate is back with us. Super quiet.
We get to stick to sports.
Super quiet. Jim writes in, said, morning, guys, into the Equitable Bank inbox. It surprised me that people didn't know how to sign their name. People are just tuning in. At my polling place, one of the poll workers commented that younger people had trouble signing their name on the line to vote. However, I can assure you schools still teach cursive. It starts in second or third grade. Thought I'd add some info. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Jim, who is an ardent listener of 1620 The Zone, is in the school system. Second or
Good
third
morning,
grade.
Jim.
I thought
Yeah.
cursive was a little bit later.
I did too. I thought it was more. Well, no, I think third grade sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah, third grade. Erasable pens.
I only remember certain things about third grade.
I was told as
Cowboys went 11-5 for me that year.
As Reese advances through his early stages of learning that cursive is back too.
Nice.
I remember them
Nice.
telling us that once he gets out of preschool and kindergarten, they start at least they're not necessarily writing their name because they barely know how to write. Period.
Can't
But
even
they
do their
start
J's.
recognizing cursive and start being able to identify cursive, and so I think it's making a strong comeback.
People don't write letters anymore.
No,
They don't have
No.
pen pals.
No Dear Johns.
Everything is a text.
Yep, it's true.
Well-
So, yeah. So when they're going to the polling place, like, I want your signature, you're like, you mean my e-signature? You mean how I sign a text? Oh, that's easy. It's all. It's
LOL.
Yeah, come on.
Before we get back to the question I posed about the addition of Dana Holgerson to help rule Satterfield or Glenn Thomas. By the way, people are a little bit concerned that in year 2, this is the play by Matt Rule. That's another topic we'll have to discuss this morning. Let's first start the morning on the phones on the 42 Degree The Source hotline with Andrew. Big day for you. It's like Christmas today with Creighton starting tonight.
Every day is like Christmas for me. Listen, I do want to give a compliment on the music selection that was played earlier. That It Takes Two. That was a nice intro.
I pressed the button, and that's what played.
Thank you.
It Takes
Yeah.
Two. That was very nice.
It was a banger.
But anyway, I think. Do you think this is an audition for both this offensive consultant and defensive consultant? His buddy from Temple, the defensive guy that's coming to take a look at it.
So,
and if you're the offensive and defensive existing coordinator now, like Satfield and White, how do you feel about that? Do you feel kind of jilted that you don't trust me, coach? Or
I think honestly, Andrew, I think that's the case for one, but not the other, because I think the reason one is coming in is a lot different than why the other is also there. And I think Phil Snow is there as a guy that can help solidify what I think is already a pretty solid, I would say, relationship and trust within the coach and in the system. And that's Tony White, Matt Rule, the defense, just trying to make sure they can find more consistency maybe. And if an extra set of eyes can help that, I think Tony White's respect for Matt Rule, at least every time we've heard Tony White talk, I think is very much there. And I think there's probably more acceptance of any additional eyes on the process as opposed to Marcus Satterfield. And I'm not saying Marcus Satterfield is completely resistant, but I think that has more impact of, yeah, we're doing this because we have to, because you're seeing the offense too, right? You know what's going on here. We need to figure things out, and either you're a part of this or not. Either way, we've got to get better.
And can a consultant? Can he call plays during the game? Can he be on the sideline during the game? Where does his limitation stop?
I think he could do it all. I would very much doubt that he would be calling plays, but maybe suggesting during the week when they put the game plan together, hey, maybe a new wrinkle. He sees something different, maybe throws in a new wrinkle. But in terms of calling plays, I think that's way too soon. I think this is more of an evaluator role for the next 3 games. But remember, Andrew, Dana Holgorsen was courted heavily, and they wanted to add him to the staff back in January. So if you were Marcus Satterfield and you're already going to remain the OC, you have already gone through this in your head, what it would be like to have him around. I think this is Matt Rule doing a favor to Marcus Satterfield, where a decision has already been made on the future of the OC job, but not going to put Marcus Satterfield on blast and fire him publicly, but make it easier for everyone to move on.
So you think he'll stay? So from what I'm hearing from you, I guess, do you think he'll stay? He'll be demoted to a positions coach, maybe?
I think he would leave the program completely.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
No. I think if what his aspirations are, he might leave the program completely. But it also wouldn't surprise me if he's still on the staff next year, but in a reduced role behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And it is Jays basketball season for us Jayskers.
It is.
So
enjoy the game tonight. You better beat UTRG by more than 20, or we're going to have some speaks tomorrow morning.
We're going to compare.
Hey, it's not like Nebraska where it's close in with 5 minutes left.
You better not be.
All about the Dubs, man.
Higher expectations here in Omaha than in Lincoln.
Sometimes you look at a poll and it's within 4 points, and it ends up and you win by 20. I mean, what are we saying? Andrew, thank you for the phone call. Sorry I had to go there.
Nice.
Rick brings up something. I want to get your thoughts on this too, because I don't think completely. Our Rick in the stream says maybe he, and I think he's talking about Holgorsen here, says maybe he adds some plays and manages the clock good. Okay, so I don't know.
That is if that's the case, that is such an indictment on the current guys that are here.
A little bit.
If you didn't already know that, that's the head coach, and that is the OC as well.
Yep. I do wonder, to Rick's point, now I'm not going to say that's what Holgorsen's is coming in and saying, all right, you got to step aside. All right. You're okay. Come over here. Let's talk. But this is when I think about a consultant or an analyst that is being brought in at this time of the year to take a look at some things that more than anything going well, but also going poorly. He brings up the clock thing. Now, I'm not saying that all of a sudden Dana Holgorsen can be like, hey, Rule, you need to be better clock management, all that stuff. But I do wonder if part of the analysis of this operation, this offensive system, will have some type of clock element to it, meaning things that we've been preaching about.
But do we know if Dana was a good clock guy? I'm not as intimately familiar.
That's
with
a great question. But when you're in,
is he going to be wearing a headset at USC?
Well, I wouldn't think so. But if he is taking a look at certain things that Nebraska does maybe well, if you're looking at film, I would be very confident if you took the amount of times that Nebraska has either gone tempo or had a sense of urgency offensively, and you saw the operation compared to when you're huddling, that you might come up with something there. And again, the current OC
goes
should.
Into that.
The head coach should see that.
I think when you add somebody like this at this point of the season, what they could do for 24 is just to simplify some things and maybe a new wrinkle or two.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a complete overhaul, because I don't think this team is built to have that kind of a shakeup.
Well, and
I don't think they could handle a shakeup like this at this current stage. But an extra voice, and just hey, this is what I see. I think they can handle that.
You know how Rule is an analytics guy too. And
his OC isn't.
Exactly. And that's where this to me is almost like a, what do they call them in the business world when you do bring in consultants? And well, the consultant report, and they look at they spend a week or a month or however long, and they give you your overall productivity and what seems to work and maybe what you could change. Is there some type of a version of that, of what maybe Dana Holgorsen is doing, where, maybe he's nowhere to really be found. He's watching the game in his own way. He's taking notes. He's coming up with whatever a report would look like in the world of Dana Holgorsen, and is saying, hey, it seems like your offense, this is probably a bad topic considering what was said 2 weeks ago, but yards per play, these are things that when we have this much left on the clock and what we're seeing compared to when we have this much left on the clock, or when you're moving at this pace, little things like that in some type of a productivity report or analysis that you can say, hey, do with this as you will, however you want to process this, but this is what I found out. And maybe I'm completely off. Maybe when they go tempo, it's not dramatically different. My eyes tell me a different story, but maybe the results are a little bit more even to when they do go in the huddle. But it just seems like there are certain things that he could maybe take 4 quarters from, and even previous games, and be able to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Again, do with this as you will, but this is what I'm seeing, as opposed to, all right, I'm calling the shots and making changes. This is what we're doing. I think there's just going to be a little bit of that as well, of here's what I'm seeing. This might help you. And kind of to your point, subtle changes that are within the framework of what this team and what the personnel that they currently have could move forward on, as opposed to radical change here in the next 3 games.
Yeah, I think Dana Holgorsen on the offensive side is a benefit to Matt Rule and Glenn Thomas. I think Phil Snow on the defensive side is an interesting guy in the middle of John Butler and Tony White.
Mm-hmm.
Something's wrong between the back end and the defensive calls on Nebraska over this roller coaster of the defense of late.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
So there's something with Evan Cooper and Tony White became familiar with each other. John Butler is trying to become familiar with Tony White, and it seems like there's a disconnect between the play call on defense and what is run on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if Phil Snow becomes the middle guy to figure out how to bridge those two together and what the difference is. Where I think Dana is. What would be the only thing that would be greater than an OC job at Nebraska? Head coach?
Head coach, yeah.
But we also don't know what Dana wants to do. Does Dana, after a year out, does he want to get back into being a head coach?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's done being a head coach.
Nope. No, he said that after the Houston debacle there at the end, that he wants to be a head coach again. You have to kind of go through that transition. So let's say that at some point we find out that he is the new offensive coordinator for Nebraska. How long are you going to have him? Is that a temporary fix? Is that something that he would try to use for 1 year to make a stepping stone back into head coaching spot?
I don't know. You have 1 year to fix the quarterback who needs to be an NFL quarterback.
That's very
and
true.
Also to fix the W&L record.
And then after that, you figure it out. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
that's
it's not a great
true.
plan to have. It's not the process. All of a sudden, the process got okay. Hey, I'm gonna do everything I can to make the program better, but
I need a quick fix.
Yeah, the process stopped off on the side of the road to fix the tire.
Yep.
Jimmy's got an update coming up next. Bill Bender with some thoughts on the college football playoff, where just maybe 3 Big Ten teams could be hosting if some things fall a certain way. So he'll join us coming up at 8. Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel as well on 1620 The Zone.
And then there's sports, yes. Millard West, who saw their string of consecutive tournament appearances in volleyball snapped at 12 last year, will be back in action when the 4-day state volleyball tournament begins today at Pinnacle Bank Arena. College football, no surprises here. Undefeated Oregon gets top billing in the college football playoff rankings that were released yesterday. The selection committee liked Ohio State, shocker, just a touch more than Georgia at its top 25. At least Ohio State can drive without getting DUIs. The first of 6 weekly polls in the committee that will put out. Other than that, the panel's top 12 looked exactly like the top dozen in the most recent AP poll. Let's just skip all this. Eventually, it'll end up 6 SEC and 6 Big Ten teams as the networks wanted. All right, baseball. Shohei Ohtani underwent shoulder surgery yesterday to repair a labrum tear sustained during the World Series. So that gives you a little bit more background on what happened to him. The Dodgers announces adding that they expect him to be ready for spring training. Ohtani suffered what the Dodgers initially described as a subluxation or slight dislocation of his left shoulder. Either way, it just hurt. It looked bad on an attempted steal during Game 2 of the World Series. He then played the next 3 games at Yankee Stadium and says thank you to Garrett Cole and the rest of the Yankees for just completely melting down in Game 5. And he did wince after some of his swings and recorded just 1 hit and 11 at-bats while the Dodgers clinched the championship. In hockey last night, this was scary. Blues forward Dylan Holloway left last night's contest against Tampa Bay and departed the rink on a stretcher after being struck by a puck in the first period. Holloway was hit in the neck area by a puck with 2:37 remaining in the period and proceeded to finish his shift, of course. Hockey, continuing to participate in the play before skating to the bench under his own power. As play was stopped with 1:11 remaining for a high sticking penalty that was later called off, teammates started calling and gesturing for assistance. The Blues trainer and medical staff from both teams tended to Holloway for several minutes before emergency medical technicians carted him off the bench on a stretcher, but he should be okay, thankfully. That is scary stuff. Let's lighten this up because we all need to be lighthearted today. It's fun. It's been a rough few days for Dabo Swinney, and that might make some happy. First, his 19th-ranked Tigers were boat raced by Louisville at home on Saturday night. Then he was told he couldn't vote at his polling place yesterday. Swinney, whose given name is William, explained that the voting system had locked him out, saying a William Swinney had already voted last week. He's seen black sheep, so there was some things to question. Swinney said it was his oldest son, Will, and not him. He said, they done voted me out of the state. We're 6-2 and 5-1, man. They done shipped me off. Dabo had to complete a paper ballot and was told there'll be a hearing Friday to resolve the issue, like it matters. Finally, Oklahoma State coach and Vallis superfan Mike Gundy, hey, if you know, you know, posted an apology last night for comments he made during his weekly Monday news conference where he suggested fans be negative about the 3-6 Cowboys can't pay their own bills. That's not nice. I hope he was nicer to the old people where he does his coach's show at. He said, I apologize to those who my comments during Monday's media call offended. My intent was not to offend any of our fans who have supported us in this program through the years, and I look forward to one day being on the Big Nude Show on Fox. Gundy, mired in a 6-game losing streak for the first time in his 20-year tenure as head coach, urged fans to continue to trust him during his Monday video conference with reporters. I remember Bud Kilmer telling his team at halftime of a championship game for the district to trust him. That didn't go well either. The preseason number 18 ranked Cowboys entered the year with Big 12 title expectations, but are 0-6 in league play and 1 loss away from clinching their first losing season since way back in 2005.
Oklahoma State. So weird things in college football. First of all, I think the playoff has made college football more exciting this year. It has also changed. I think we all have to be prepared for a lot of chaos that's going to happen here in the next month and a half. I think like the Indianas of the world, how they constructed their roster, who they hired, and some jobs that could open, like Florida. Mm-hmm. Look at Oklahoma State. Did you ever think that Oklahoma State would be 0-6 in the Big 12?
No. I thought they'd at least be middle of the pack, if not upper tier.
Or Indiana will take the field on Saturday as a 2-touchdown favorite against the defending national champion, mm-hmm. or Notre Dame is a 25-point favorite against Florida State. Yeah. So it's been a weird year in college football, and I wonder what the course correction will look like. Like, will the portal just get crazy, not only of guys leaving their current teams, but like some promises that are not kept to high school recruits? I mean, are we going to be in the next 6 weeks just flipping season all over the place where guys are decommitting because they're not getting the NIL money or they didn't have the kind of year that they had, so the NIL money is not going to be the same. You're going to have some key jobs that are going to open up, and then we're going to have the playoff going on. We're going to have opt-outs of bowl games. I mean, it's the next 6 weeks in college football could be really chaotic as if Indiana's doing it, why can't we do it? Indiana hired this guy named Cignetti from James Madison. Who are we going to get?
Right.
I think it's going to be a fascinating next 6 weeks. It might be uncomfortable for people, but the one thing about Nebraska's move yesterday, and I'm watching this on the stream, the discussion this morning, I think when you hear the name yesterday, you're like, okay. Then as you kind of dive into how this is all going to work, because I heard too many cooks in the kitchen, that became a popular thing.
Yeah.
People are like, I don't know. There's a couple of comments in the stream about this is a rule panic move.
Yeah, I don't get that. But yeah,
there's the part of what Indiana has done and some other places in their first year. It has changed your timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't stand pat.
Right.
You can't stick to process. The process has to be rather quick. And I look at the addition yesterday of not as a panic move. It's a panic move if we've never talked about Dana Holgorsen before.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a connection to Dana Holgorsen. There's a connection to Phil Snow.
Yep.
There's also, are people going to be upset because this would be a friend hire? We're already upset at friend hires.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this friend hire has a little bit better track record than a Marcus Satterfield has in terms of organizing, designing, calling plays. I think it's one of these things where Rule thought after last year that they would be where Cignetti is now.
Yeah.
Not the roster, but the success.
Yep.
And they're not there, and he can't afford to just wait it out the rest of the season because they also have to go into recruiting mode.
Mm-hmm.
What is attractive outside of the brand, which is still strong, and the money that could be at the disposal for Nebraska for them to beat out schools that are going to also be active in the portal or active in those kids that might flip. So you have about a 3 or 4 week window to fix 15 and to make Nebraska fun again.
And the impact of all of that is fascinating because doesn't all of this conversation all start with, instead of 4 teams, now we have 12 teams. So that ramps up the sense of urgency of no one's asking you to be necessarily a national championship contender. But boy, wouldn't it be nice on a year from now, that first day, that you are either in that 12 or you're just on the outside of that 12 with a puncher's chance.
Well,
so how do we get there?
Yeah, look at Iowa. I think next to Louisville, Iowa is the best 3-loss team in the country.
I would agree.
Okay.
Especially the way that they're playing right now, too.
You look at, they are tied for 4th in scoring offense in the Big Ten. They're at about 31 points a game. They've got 6 wins where they've won by 26 or more. That's their average margin of victory. The Sagarin ratings like them at 16.
Mm-hmm.
The FPI likes them at 17. They're on the cusp with 3 losses. If you're in the Big Ten and you see that, man, if weird things happen, Iowa could move up and be on the cusp of getting into the playoffs, and they would have, at minimum 3 losses. Yeah, in the Big 12, or in the Big 10 and the SEC, you just need to be on the cusp. And you're going to get the benefit of being in that conference. So I think that speeds everything up.
It ramps up the sense of urgency for programs like Nebraska that know that they have their brand working for them. And they're not alone. There's other programs like that. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of heat on Oklahoma State next year too. Okay, if this is just an anomaly, how do you get back into it? And this is where I do trust the resources that Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State have. But to your point about Indiana, okay,
I think he's worn out his welcome. T. Boone Pickens has passed away.
Yeah, and that was his biggest advocate, 100%. And there was a bottomless pit of money there.
He's been consistent, and he has weathered some storms, but he's also won some football games. They're not winning football games.
Yeah,
they're not winning football games.
And I think
they haven't won a game in the Big 12.
And that's an interesting point you bring up there. Is if that indeed is the case, and I don't think you're far off there. If you're Oklahoma State, can you afford to just say, yeah, but Gundy will figure it out, as opposed to, we can't let this job fall back into the place of the current Big 12 standings, to where I would say Oklahoma State would be a very good job. But if you go a couple more years where you're mid to lower tier in that conference,
it goes back to what it was.
Yep. And especially as that conference is getting left out, with multiple teams in the college football playoff, if that happens.
Back to the Bob Simmons era.
Yeah. Who wants the Oklahoma State job then?
That was rough.
Yeah.
But the Indiana part of this too, where if you, like you said, you can find, okay, who's the next Kurt Signetti type guy who's just a winner and has a roster that they can also bring over, that these guys can make those types of impacts. There's so many different trends in college football, because I think every year, to your original point about, is this going to be flipping season here in the next 6 weeks? We've seen that to a degree. You expect it to a degree of flipping and then of the transfer portal. But I'm with you. This feels different because of a lot of these wild scenarios that have played out. Florida State is a team that felt like they were absolutely crushed and should have been in the college football playoff. Now can't win a freaking game. And they were putting together a hell of a recruiting class. All of a sudden, people are wondering, okay, what's the future of Norvell? What's the future at Florida State? What's the future of the ACC as Florida State belongs to it and their place at the table here? Then you look at, again, I'll go back to Indiana you're telling me that a basketball school, all it takes is just the right guy and the right amount of transfers, and we can win. We can win at this level now. Okay, then what exactly are we doing? As opposed to when the one thing Matt Rule had, I think, going for him, and even when he got hired in Nebraska, is this guy is a program builder and in some cases a rebuilder. Okay, that's great. And Nebraska definitely needs that. But now in the college football playoff era of 12 teams, that rebuild, I think, speeds up 2 more years. And so can Matt Rule do that? I think Matt Rule is very in tune to the game. I think he can pivot. I think he's shown, at least the way that he articulates, that he's aware of it. But can you physically do it? Can you step up your timetable as a developer with that mix of being able to develop properly, but also getting guys in that can help you right away? Because again, this was something I was having a conversation with someone yesterday about talent identification in the transfer portal. Hasn't been all that great in the 2 years for Nebraska.
So the first year they missed on quarterbacks. Yep. The second year they kind of half in, half out missed on wide receivers.
Mm-hmm. So,
but they also, I think here's the thing. If you look at, a move like yesterday, so Nebraska needs to play big boy football, and you make moves when you're a big boy football program like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And you spend money. You pay $1.4 million for an offensive coordinator, even though there is nothing in the world that says this guy should be one of the top 10 paid coordinators. So you're playing big boy football. But here's the thing. If you look at the Floridas of the world, some like the Florida States, some of the teams that have been down, USC, for example.
Miami.
But Miami is okay. Miami hasn't been down. But I'm looking into the offseason. Teams that have struggled this year. Your competition in the portal is going to be fierce.
Yep.
Your haul out of the portal this year has to be ballers. Okay? They have to be guys that come in and play right away and are ballers.
Mm-hmm.
You have to identify them, as you were alluding to, and then you have to win that battle. So you basically have a month to improve your profile online.
Yep.
So that people can see, okay, that's why it's so important for Dylan.
Yep.
That they fix Dylan so that Nebraska looks fun. That Dylan Raiola does not continue down the path that he has had in the last 4 games. That all of a sudden he's back to balling. There's more Patrick Mahomes references. People are talking about the quarterback at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he is still in the situation of 1 touchdown, 6 interceptions, last 4 games, do the math for the last 3. I mean, what's your pull to attract people to Nebraska when your money is going against the same money that another school has?
That has the exact same amount of desperation as well. And think of it, I'll take the Dylan Raiola part a step further. 2 out of the 3 stages that he's going to have, you're going to be on the LA stage in 2 weeks. A lot of eyeballs on that because those are 2 major brands. And we talked about this kind of jokingly yesterday about how all of a sudden that game has become very, very interesting with USC making the quarterback change. And now you have a couple of new influences or at least observers on the Nebraska coaching staff that has become interesting. But also, hey, this is the first time Dylan has been banged up, at least publicly that we know of, and is trying to work through an injury. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on him. But you're also doing that out in LA. Then to wrap up the season, you're on prime time on Friday night on Black Friday against a hell of a defense in Iowa and playing in that game too. How does that look? Because you can take 4 quarters of that Colorado game and you say, damn, this looks fun, doesn't it? Don't you want to be a part of this? But at some point, that recruit's going to say, or that guy in the transport is going to be like, okay, show me another game. Okay, I want to see another game. And sorry, UTEP doesn't count. Give me more examples of this. So you're right. It's how Nebraska finishes this season is going to go a long way, because no longer can you say, yeah, you know what, though? At the end of the day, we can outspend those schools. Not always, and especially programs that are going to be, to some extent, even more desperate than you are.
Well, and they might even be desperate to come after a guy on your roster.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's...
Tell me Ja'Cory Barney's not getting phone calls?
Yeah, no, I said that the other day. I mean, you almost have to entertain it. That Ja'Cory Barney, hey, Miami guy.
Yep.
Closer to home.
Want to come to Tallahassee?
So,
Gainesville?
you also have to probably convince some guys that are on your roster. Believe it or not. I mean, they may say all the right things publicly, but they're going, man, is this the place? So you got about a 3-week window here. That's why I say, if I had to rank who the addition of Holgorsen on the offensive side of the ball was it more for Rule, Satterfield, or Thomas? I would say Matt Rule, number 1, Glenn Thomas, number 2, and not even worry about Satterfield, because I've been staunch on this. I think a decision has already been made. Matt Rule, with this addition, showed that, okay, he's not just standing pat and he's going to be stubborn. He's going to try and help this team now and more down the road. But also, what did yesterday do towards Matt Rule? Compare, Nick, Monday and Tuesday's discourse on the head football coach at Nebraska.
As far as how he was, when he was talking about
it, took all the attention off Matt Rule yesterday.
Oh,
because Matt Rule had a bad Monday in the state of Nebraska.
Yeah.
A bad Monday.
Yep.
And people were questioning, is he the right guy? So you hit the pause, and now we'll spend 10 days talking about Dana Holgorsen.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's absolutely true, because the level of frustration that was shown on the head man and just the lack of answers that came, but then all of a sudden you're saying, hey, I'm not saying this is the ultimate solution, but I got a guy that I think can help us. To what extent remains to be seen. No, you're right.
He matched.
You're right.
Of the casual nature that Nebraska has operated this year, the head coach made a couple of moves yesterday that matched the urgency of the fan base.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think it's a panic move, though, because I think a lot of people want to say that's a panic move. Now you're just throwing stuff at the wall and hopefully it sticks. You cannot overlook the fact that these conversations were happening back in January, that there was already a look into this offense and how Dana Holgorsen and how someone could help this offense. I think this is exactly what you said it is. This is a guy understanding. I said this after the game against UCLA. One of the toughest things to do if you cannot finish the season successfully and you have another 5-7 season, how the hell do you sell hope and patience? You can't sell patience. How the hell do you sell hope that this program is going to be better? And that's not just for the fans. We're talking more about what we're getting into when it comes to your overall roster. How do you sell that? Well, what you did yesterday shows that, not that anybody should have doubted that Matt Rule was taking this serious, because I think we know better. He's taking this serious. I think this means a lot to him. I think we know that. I think that's why you saw him respond the way that he did on Monday, but also respond the way that he did yesterday, because that to me is a move for the fans, but also sending a message to your roster and potential future players that we understand this is unacceptable. So we are kicking over every stone we possibly can to make this thing better. People might want to look at that as a panic. That's how'd you put it? Operating like a big boy football team. That's what you have to do there. You can't sit by, because then people are going to continue wondering, what direction is this going into? And as every day that people are asking that questions, you lose any type of leverage that you have to improve that roster as well.
Yeah, don't overlook the fact that this benefits Glenn Thomas with quarterback development.
100%.
All right, quick break. Bill Bender will join us in about 40 minutes. It's mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
This week's Zone Deal is Ted and Wally's Ultra Premium Ice Cream. Ted and Wally's is located in the Old Market and in Benson. Ted and Wally's Ultra Premium Ice Cream is made from scratch with all natural ingredients, no additives or artificial flavoring. All ice cream is slow churned the old-fashioned way, using the rock salt and ice with low airflow for a homemade taste and texture that is hard to find and so delicious. This sweet deal is $50 vouchers to Ted and Wally's. For just $25, you'll receive 5 $10 vouchers at half off. On sale Friday at 9 a.m. at 1620thezone.com.
Do you think subtly? I got to get back on the stream here. I knocked myself off.
It is tricky, yes, to rock it. That's right on top.
Yes.
It is tricky.
Do you think subtly that Matt Rule is a big fan of Office Space?
Because of the Bobs?
The Bobs have arrived in Lincoln?
No, even better. Do you think at any point Phil Snow or Dana Holgerson will bring in somebody and say, what would you say you do here? Still one of my favorite lines.
That is such an underrated movie.
Oh, great movie. It's so good.
Fun for the whole family.
There was somebody I was talking to that's around my age. I was quoting it. That was like a year ago. I had no idea what the movie. They're like, you're talking about The Office. I'm like, no, Office Space.
Yeah.
And they have never seen it. Like, you don't know about the O-Face? You don't know about Lumberg? Come on. You don't know about the Bobs?
The stapler?
Yeah, the Boston stapler. Come on.
Because I bring it up because Steve has said, isn't the ultimate question for Satterfield? And then it shows them, busting up the copy machine.
When they take the copy machine out in the middle, the song in the background, which is great.
John says, are we going to nickname Holgerson Bob or Squirrel? like when Rule talks to the media again, like on Monday, just nothing but Office Space, and see how soon the media get it.
Wouldn't it be great at the end of the press conference? Goes, oh, and don't forget, next Friday is Hawaiian T-shirt day. So if you want to, you can wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Just show up in a Hawaiian.
Looks at Sip and goes, hey, was Jennifer Aniston ever your hall pass?
You got to be careful here, Coach.
Hey, Sip.
Oh, then we can get into flair.
Sip, I bet you eat at a lot of restaurants that have waiters and waitresses that have flair and tchotchkes.
Tchotchkes.
I first learned that word.
Hey, that would immediately
immediately
vault a four-loss head coach to the coach of the year in the Big Ten.
If he walked in and somebody asked a somewhat confrontational question, and of course his press conferences are on what days? Mondays. He could go, looks like somebody's got a case of the Mondays. That would be amazing.
Hey, I would pay Rule to pull that on one of the reporters.
Looks like someone's got a case of the Mondays. That would be you want to take attention off of the stink of the UCLA game. If he would have opened with that would have been very, very disarmed. I'd have been very disarmed.
Sean says, my OU friend down in Oklahoma says people down there think Gundy's been silently quitting.
Is it because he's doing his coach's show from Retirement Center?
Hey, that's genius. I wish our coach's shows at KU were there when I was doing them.
I silently quit from the Urbandale Pharmacy.
Just kind of you just sort of phased yourself out. They didn't phase you out. You phased yourself
to come
out.
Back.
Didn't drop off some drugs at certain places on my route.
Oh, jeez. You still have some paychecks?
Get that Percocet.
No, that was when I was like 14.
Oh, okay.
I worked there for like 6 weeks.
That's kind of a good gig at 14.
That guy was mean.
Working for a pharmacy?
Yeah, I mean, it was.
Hey, look at you.
I got to drive around. No, I was 16.
Okay, still.
So I think I was 16.
Well, you could have done it before 16 with a work permit.
But my job was to drive around and drop off and pick up stuff at like nursing homes and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have to go into the nursing home. I just had to go to like the front desk.
So you had the ultimate pickup line at 16. You could have said, yeah, I work in the medical industry.
I mean, true.
At 16?
Yeah.
Maybe back then it didn't hold as much weight, but if you're a 16-year-old now and you do something like that, and you're like, yeah, I work in the medical field.
I mean, Doogie Howser was a few years later.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at that. I was looking at that I could go and pick up my friends in this really cool SUV from Urbandale Pharmacy.
Oh, and it was a company car,
yeah,
too?
Company car.
Yeah, because
I'd
have to go make the deliveries.
You had some perks, man. Wow.
Yeah, I got paid like $4.05 an hour.
That's minimum wage.
And the guy was mean.
Old man, his pharmacy, like
it was a family-owned pharmacy.
Yeah.
They're no longer there. They used to be on the corner of 70. What is that? Jeez, I haven't lived in Urbandale in a while.
Were they near the machine? What's the
70th and Aurora?
What's the restaurant? What machine?
Nope, that's way on the other side of town. That's Living History Farms.
That's the only.
That is not that's not. This was the OG downtown Urbandale.
Oh, okay.
Which really doesn't exist anymore because Urbandale has
where you're just
flighted its way out.
You're just another statistic now. The OG downtown
urban
Udale?
sprawl.
Hey, I lived in inner city Urbandale. We did not have
South Central Urbandale.
That's why you're so street smart.
We did not have like the like the nice smooth lawns.
Yeah.
We had the lawns where it looked like they put in a new sewer pipe and they didn't do the landscaping very well, so you got like a
empty pack of smokes.
That's the neighborhood I lived in. But you know what? It may be the kind of man that I am today.
It does. It molds you.
Corey says, I see your office space and call with Idiocracy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Idiocracy is great.
Best picture one day is going to be ass. That's it.
Office
Within
space,
15 years.
I just remember what Fuddruckers morphed into by the present day.
Fuddruckers here has morphed into a Mega Saver down the street.
I miss
the spirit of Halloween.
Didn't we have a GM who wanted to take everybody always to Fuddruckers? You're going to have a meeting and it's always, let's go to Fuddruckers.
I went to an NFL show sponsored by it.
It was always judged what kind of a stature you had.
So was Fuddruckers, was that elite?
I always look at this like I'm going to put them on blast, and I know that some of them are listening. Mm-hmm. So if you ever have a meeting with anybody from Omaha Athletics, you're going to Charleston's.
Yes, that's true.
Because they have a relationship with Charleston's, and Charleston's is a really good place.
It's called trade.
You said that, I didn't.
It's true, though.
It is true.
I may have mentioned it to the man in charge the other day.
Yeah.
Because I go, hey, we need to do lunch. And I said, Charleston's?
I'd take it.
So Omaha Athletics has a special relationship with Charleston. Yes. So that's whenever you have a meeting with anybody from the athletic department, that's where you're going to go. But if they suggest somewhere else, you're like, oh, I see where I rank. I'm
trying to.
But
yeah,
if here, you either were going to Wheatfields. Or
delicious.
Fuddruckers. So
which one was considered better?
Wheatfields.
Give me Wheatfields.
Because
I mean, I would
for breakfast.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I would agree with that.
Yeah, like they took everybody to Fuddruckers to have like a meeting.
Yeah.
The world's greatest hamburgers.
And now Fuddruckers, I don't know how they're putting a Mega Saver where that Fuddruckers is.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to get in.
Yeah, the parking lot there on both, 70, the corner of 72nd and Dodge is already a mess. And they're gonna squeeze one in there. Now they're not gonna have gas.
No.
But they're going to squeeze it in there. I saw them working on it the other day when I was
on top of library traffic.
Chipotle.
Yeah, the library's coming together.
Sad for Fuddruckers that Fuddruckers.
I like
gone.
Fuddruckers.
Are there any Fuddruckers in America anymore?
I bet there's still
last I saw was Houston.
Survived. Let's see.
Why didn't Fuddruckers survive in Omaha location?
That's a great that location.
Bad food?
Remember, it kept getting smaller. By its final day, it was like almost a tiny little kiosk. It used to be a lot bigger too.
Going for a burger in a kiosk. Is that what we're at?
That's kind of what it was. And they're like, yeah, you know what are we even doing here? Let's see. Locations. There are some still available right now or still open right now. Currently in the U.S., there are 107 franchises across the United States with their headquarters in Houston, Texas.
Oh, that explains a lot why we had that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but sadly, none within our radius.
I did not eat that when I lived in Houston.
I was watching the Manning cast the other night, and so Bill Belichick is everywhere. Did you guys see a little controversy though away from the Manning cast and ESPN with Bill Belichick?
No,
with his ex-girlfriend.
Oh, was this the Halloween picture?
Yeah,
yeah.
And then his new girlfriend, who is like 50 years younger than he is, she dressed up for Halloween.
The mermaid.
Who do you think?
Yeah. Splash.
Who do you like more in post-retirement, Nick Saban or Bill Belichick?
I'm gonna go Saban slightly right now.
Gosh,
Belichick's living his best life.
I actually kind of like Belichick. I kind of like Belichick better because there were always hints that players would talk about. Oh yeah, Bill Belichick behind closed doors is actually a lot different than we're on to Cincinnati. And now you're seeing it a lot more, where Saban started to give you that there towards the end, like not how he currently is and everywhere and embracing everything that is media, but Saban started to show you a little bit more of that. Belichick all of a sudden was just, once he was no longer in the Patriot organization which is something he created, by the way. I'm not trying to say like he was shackled by the Patriots, but all of a sudden it's like, hey, coaching, life after coaching, which I still think he wants to coach, but I can get used to this. All of a sudden it's just like, okay, now we know who he is a lot more, but it was a complete 180. And I've enjoyed him. I've enjoyed him a lot.
I would say Belichick as well. Like I started to like Saban more actually in this country during COVID, because he showed a side of him that was not a football coach.
Mm-hmm.
He was very active in issues with his players.
Yep.
And then I thought he became a leader of the sport during COVID of, we need to play. This is how we can play. And then it's almost like his media persona really lightened up. Remember, that was kind of along the start of the time where he started to look at the camera.
Mm-hmm.
He had done it for a couple of years prior because somebody had done some media training with him, but he started that weird sideline reporter would ask him questions and he would look at the camera, not the reporter.
Right.
And you're like, oh, that's weird. But then he started to show up on game day more when Alabama wasn't playing. And you saw like a different side of him. And I thought after the COVID championship, when they beat Ohio State, he like really, really lightened up.
Oh, and you could tell he enjoyed that one.
And I thought, man, I already respect the hell out of Saban. But now, like the Nick Saban person, I kind of like.
Yeah.
Belichick, when I first started to see that, okay, Belichick, there's something different when you get him away from the Death Star in Foxborough.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Remember the Army-Navy game and they brought him on set on game day? And he was so relaxed and he liked talking ball and his personality came out. He was at the end of his tenure with the Patriots.
Yeah.
And then once he got away from the Patriots, kind of like Brady, and then you see him, make fun of himself.
Right.
Shows up more viral stuff, is at the roast, is letting players make fun of him, and he makes fun of the players. And now what he's doing with the Manning Cast, and he's got his own podcast. And when he appears on McAfee, he's a guy that looks like he's enjoying life for the first time, that it isn't always about football. And he's letting something is allowing him to be himself. So I like Belichick more, but there isn't much of a difference. Ironically, two of the better hires that ESPN has made in a long time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Nick Saban, along with McAfee, have eliminated the competition for pregame shows on Saturdays.
Yep.
Nick Saban was dressed as the Nittany Lion on Saturday with "We Are." And then Belichick smiles.
Yes.
Belichick laughs. Belichick tells jokes.
Belichick does commercials.
In a day and age where ESPN is cutting talent, and then there have been some talented people that no longer work there.
Yep.
And then there's Stephen A. Smith and McAfee are the two most powerful people, maybe the two best full-time hires that ESPN has made since the great days of ESPN, when they were making banger hire after banger hire that was on SportsCenter and became stars, are the two they've hired in this offseason for football, Saban and Belichick.
Well, and you could also say that the McAfee factor of Bill Belichick, too, is where we started to see it, where he started becoming a regular guest on Pat McAfee. And even at the end of his time coaching, where he would be on every now and then, you're like, wow, for a guy that, it just curdles his stomach, his insides to do the weekly obligation with the media, and you would get the answers as such. You're like, why would Pat McAfee, who's just beaming with personality, almost to sometimes a fault, is going to have this guy on? But give Pat McAfee, that might be one of his greatest accomplishments, is getting that out of Bill Belichick. Because you know why Bill Belichick did that?
Well, because
he's a former player.
He's also done it to Saban.
Yeah, he started with Saban.
Yeah.
But I think Saban was a little bit more open to it. And you bring up 2020, and that's where you started to see a little bit. And Saban always had that. Like, he has the appearance in The Blind Side. He's been in commercials a lot more so than what Bill Belichick ever was. So you could tell he was always open to that.
Does Nick Saban make Deion Sanders likable?
In the commercials a little bit.
He and the Duck, yeah.
A little bit. You know what makes Deion Sanders likable? He ain't saying much. Since that Nebraska game, hadn't said much, and all that team is doing is winning.
Did Nebraska fix Deion?
Maybe a course correction.
He had a moment yesterday where They explained to him the tradition in Lubbock about throwing tortillas on the field, and he goes, "Is that legal?"
Yeah,
it was funny.
There's always going to
he'd never heard that before, but that's where Colorado plays this weekend.
Yeah.
Delicious too.
There's always going to be a
homemade, way better.
There's never going to be a completely subdued Dion when he engages, but but the Pat McAfee, the fact that you know how Bill Belichick is probably going to interact with anybody in the media, and especially if that person was a former player, albeit a punter, but someone who is passionate about the sport and still very active about being passionate about the sport. Those are the types of people that you knew Bill Belichick, if he were to show you that personality, that he would engage properly with. Because he's looking at a lot of beat writers. You and I both know those beat writers know football as well. But I think in certain football minds, you don't have that same level of respect that you do with one of your own or one of the former players. And so I think that led to what we now see Bill Belichick. So I give Pat McAfee a lot of credit for that.
By the way, Fox's pregame show on Saturdays, done. Gonzo. Out.
No, so they're
out. Done. Not off the air, but they have no response to what ESPN is doing because ESPN has McAfee and Saban and even Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer, the first time on that show, was great. Was great. The second time on the show, Urban Meyer is better when he is with DiNardo during the week breaking down film than he is on that show.
Yeah, and even that's
and now McAfee has been unleashed on that show. Did you see what he did this weekend? So both shows were in State College. Pat McAfee. Both shows were in State College this weekend.
Right.
And people were upset that game was not a night game because of the whiteout and playing Ohio State. So McAfee went after Fox on air without saying Fox about how excited are we that this game's kicking off at 11 a.m.
Oh.
And then you got the F Fox.
Yeah, okay.
F Fox. Fox has no response to McAfee. They don't have like a bulldog to turn on ESPN.
Yeah.
And McAfee,
you mean what?
McAfee has...
They got Ingram.
Gundy?
McAfee has such a long runway at that network that they'll just let him go. I don't know what the time of death was on Saturday, but that's the day that the Fox pregame show died.
It's been dead. It's been so boring this year.
I gave it an opportunity a few times this year, and it's how game day was before they got McAfee and Saban in, where game day was starting to drown a little bit. And it was very stale.
The two best guys on the Fox pregame show are ESPN guys, Rinaldi and the Bear.
Yep, absolutely. And even that can't save it. That's probably the only redeeming part about the Fox pregame show is when Rinaldi does his typical Tom Rinaldi piece.
Here's the piano.
But as far as, Mark Ingram is unbearable. He is, and now they're trying so hard for him to be the Pat McAfee guy, the hype man, the guy that can be really funny and can get the entire desk sort of riled up. And it's so stodgy and it's so forced. There was a time that I think it was just a different option. I don't even say a better option than when ESPN was getting very stale. So you gave it a chance. You're like, and I think you're right. I think Urban was a little bit better. I think Urban's just mailing it in now. He's just like, I'm here. I'm getting paid a lot of money.
No, I don't know about mailing it in. I wouldn't agree with that because I look at him in some of the other things he does.
Look like great at USC.
His DiNardo stuff.
Oh, I'm talking about the show.
I'm
talking about the pregame show.
You think he's mailing it in?
I think so because he used to give you a lot of good coach nuggets, kind of like what Saban gives you. Maybe it's just been this year has been off. I don't know. He just has not been nearly as insightful, and he doesn't go places as much as what I thought he used to. Now, I've only watched it twice this year, but it's very flat. The Ingram thing drives me nuts more than anything because you know exactly what his role's supposed to be, and it's so damn forced. It's brutal. It's just brutal. Like Pat McAfee is one of one. Whether you like him or not, nobody can disagree. He's one of one. And to try to duplicate that or to have that personality or role, you can't force that.
Yeah, game day made a shift. Game day is now fun. They have fun. They laugh on the air.
Despite Desmond Howard, who I can't stand listening to. Yeah. But you know what? I think he's minimized.
I think they've done a good job of pushing him aside.
Which is great.
All right, Bill Bender will join us at the top of the hour. Jay Moore in about 2. Brandon Vogel as well. We'll answer a couple of questions. Emails about Dana Holgorsen. People very interested in Dana Holgorsen. Don't forget about Phil Snow and what he does on defense, maybe to resolve some questions. That's how I look at that. We'll dive into that when we come back. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. So the whole Office Space theme that's going on in Lincoln, fantastic. So Shane has gone the handiwork here. He has Bob
Slidell.
Bob Slidell.
Yep.
And this is really good. So you have Dana and Phil.
Mm-hmm.
He says, Garrett, tell us about your wide receivers. And so playing the role of Garrett is Michael Bolton.
I celebrate the guy's entire catalog.
He goes, I guess I sort of like it. And then would you guys like to take a gander on who is playing the role of Ed Foley?
Milton.
That's perfect. Ed, let's discuss about the special teams. Ed, can you put down the stapler?
Oh, let me go even further on that one. Wouldn't it be great if, as they're having the conversation about Ed or Milton, like Matt Rule's talking to Dana Holgorsen and Phil Snow, and like, so we found out that you actually had fired him earlier in the season, but due to some type of glitch in the payroll, he still gets a paycheck. So we went ahead and fixed the glitch. Okay, so Ed Foley is no longer coaching. No, excuse me. Wait a second, Professor. We fixed the glitch. So naturally, he just won't have a paycheck, and it'll work itself out.
Now, who's playing the role of Peter Gibbons in all of this down in Lincoln?
Ooh, is that so Rule is Lumberg then, right?
Yeah, he'd have to play the role of the great Gary Cole.
So yeah, we got to basically find the guy who just keeps it real and basically moves up the ladder. Is that Tony White? Does Tony White impress the Bobs? Impresses Phil Snow, and he just starts going in one day and showing up 15 minutes late to work, and he's out fishing while everyone's grinding at practice. Then just shows up whenever he wants to and says, I actually put in, if it comes down to it, I probably do 15 minutes of actual work. There's a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
Now, that would have been perfect back in the day of Bruce Reed.
Oh, that would have been. There you go. That's Bruce Reed.
So Bruce Reed his kickers would be back home before practice would actually end. And Bruce Reed would be on the golf course before Nebraska's practice was in because
he was making good money.
They used to go with special teams at the beginning of practice. They'd do their big special teams, and then they were done for the day. And they'd be able to leave. Like you'd go to practice back in that time when Bruce Reed was a special teams coach here. They literally, the special teams guys would come off the field. Like the coach would come off the field and they'd be gone. They never did special teams again. They had a big period at the beginning. They did everything they needed to do, and then they were done. And then they were on to the rest of practice. That's when they even stretched.
Can you imagine Bruce Reed's, whoever he was golfing with? Like, well, I can get us a tee time at about noon. Oh, crap. You probably still have practice, though, don't you? She's like, actually, I should be done by then. Well, they'll be practicing, but my duties are done by then. Like, really? You can make it? Okay, cool. All right, you're in.
Hey, I mean, he only made $450.
Yeah, only
$550. I just have
for a part-time job.
I have a little suggestion here. So, there's a discussion about can Nebraska, should there be a fix for the limp that Nebraska has had? Okay, the last 3 games. Vitally important. Nebraska has to find 1 win. I don't care what you do, got to find 1 win. Some people are saying, hey, just find me 11,000. I'm just saying, hey, find me 1.
Just get those extra 15 practices, man.
Can Nebraska for the rest of the year, for God's sake, and I'm talking to you, 550, is let's just fair catch the kickoff. Like that's another one. Put that on the tab of Matt Rule.
Talking to you, 550.
You remember when he said we're going to return kicks?
Yeah.
Okay. All the stuff that they said they were going to do that they haven't done.
Yeah. We don't like touchbacks.
I mean, one thing I like about Dana is Dana knows how to design run plays and has been exceptionally good in the red zone. But remember the discussion before the season began is no. We're going to we want to take the ball out on kickoffs.
Yep. Want to be aggressive.
Just stop for the last 3 games. You know what? Fair catch is your best friend.
Yep.
Just take the ball at the 25.
Yeah.
Okay. From now on until you get it fixed next year, stop trying to return kickoffs. Okay. Because what you want is not working, and you're better off just fair catching and starting at the 25. I'm not paid $550,000. If I was, there'd be a lot of discussion within the walls of this place.
I'm sure there would be.
But I'm here to tell you, just fair catch the rest of the year, please. No one's going to hold it against you. No. It actually might help the Q rating of Ed Foley. He'll be like, hey, look at the positive field position.
Right.
But please.
Look, the offense only has to go 75 yards as opposed to 85.
Please. Just fair catch. the rest of the year on kickoffs. And no one's going to think poorly of you. You know where we think poorly of you? If Nebraska is starting from the 18-yard line because they've muffed another kickoff. Or they catch a kickoff at the 1 and step out of bounds.
Right. That's the thing. The comedy of errors of when you catch it and attempt to turn it upfield. It's not even that your blocking in front of you is broken down so poorly that the kick coverage is all over you. It's the comedy of errors, the muffs, the awareness or lack thereof of where you are in the field and where the boundary is. All of this thing. And what we've discussed of how difficult this offense makes things to get even 10 yards. I'm sorry, the difference between a 75-yard field and an 85-yard field for this team is monumental. It's huge. It is enormous. So I'm going to take the yards anywhere I can get them. So yeah, that might have been the philosophy to start out the season. But again, as Matt Rule said, he thought this offense would be a lot better than it is. This would be simply knowing the limitations of your offense and trying to give that group any type of advantage whatsoever. And yeah, it probably takes a little bit of the ire off of the special teams, at least for the last 3 games. That's where we are. That is where we are. Just fair catch the crap out of everything right now.
All right, Bill Bender of the Sporting News is going to stop by next. Last night was the first release of the college football playoff bracket. It will change a bit between now and then. Will it change enough for SMU to sneak in? Texas A&M or Alabama to leave? Alabama LSU this weekend is an elimination game. All of that, plus we'll get into some other things about Bill's personal life when he joins us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, elimination games this weekend. Alabama, LSU. Some other interesting games on the docket. On the morning after the first playoff rankings, a bracket came out, and a good opportunity to catch up with a good friend from the Sporting News, Bill Bender, who joins us now. Good morning, Bill.
Hey, good morning. How's it going?
Good. Okay, so a lot of us watched last night. We spent an hour. We had to remind ourselves that it's only the first one. Things are going to change. But what was your takeaway on the reaction towards the Indiana resume and what they have done? Because it became, is Indiana not getting respected? Are they getting enough respect? Where are you at with this current Indiana team going into November without a loss?
You know what I'm going to do is something that rarely gets done. I'm going to say the committee did a pretty good job.
Hmm?
I thought, based on watching this over the years, maybe there was a chance Alabama would be ranked ahead of Indiana. And I'm being completely serious because I've seen them do things like that. So I think they ranked Indiana properly, honestly. And yes, Indiana has work to do, but the good news is we get to see that play out. They play Michigan this weekend. That's a high visibility game for them. Despite the fact that the Wolverines are bad, that's still an important game because they've only beat them once this century.
I want to stick with Indiana because, okay, so with what Indiana has in front of them, you mentioned Michigan, they had the Ohio State game and then Purdue. If they take care of business against Ohio State, against Michigan, but lose to Ohio State, they're left out of the Big Ten championship game. Where do you think that does put Indiana? Can a one-loss Indiana, in your opinion, still get into the college football playoff?
I think so. And I think they're good. I mean, you guys,
I do too.
Yeah. When they played Nebraska, I can separate what we do so often in college football and just look at the uniform. No, they're good. They can run the football. Curtis Rourke will play in the league. Kills me because I'm an Ohio alum. But he's an NFL quarterback, and their defense is probably the underrated thing. You look at their stats on defense and how they fly to the football. I'll be the first to admit, I thought, and I'm not piling on here, I thought the Nebraska game would be close. I really did. And they took it to the Huskers. They've taken it to everybody, though. Yep. They scored 47 unanswered points against Michigan State last week. I think, okay, so do you remember a couple years ago, Michigan State got hammered by Ohio State? Unless something like that happens, I would think they're in no matter what.
So Indiana's point differential is plus 296. Let's stick with IU for a moment because they're going to have the Big Ten Coach of the Year. Indiana looks fun. We're not talking basketball. We're talking football. I think it's so much better for the Big Ten when the Indianas that have had minimal success for a long time have that one breakthrough year. And then we go, well, can Cignetti do it in year two? He's a winner, period, in my book. But how much, Bill, this chatter of, well, he's going to be one and done in Bloomington. Do you buy into that? Because he'll be a popular name, but doesn't it seem like he has something going at IU that is special?
He does, and it feels a little bit like Joe Tiller when he was at Purdue, when he came into the league, and it was different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've watched the Big Ten my entire life, and I know Cignetti's different. Tiller was different. He came in, and people, you can't possibly throw the ball 50 times and win in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
And he got this guy named Drew Brees, and he did all right with it. So Cignetti's different like that. Like, when he comes out I'll be the first to admit it, Big Ten Media Day, when he was on the podium and saying, we're going to do this, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Or not as much as I should have been,
Mm-hmm.
because you're just like, that's what a coach at the program like that has to do. It's been unbelievable. He's been great. And, but the decision for him would be, okay, do you think you can do that again here? Or, if Florida pops open or somewhere like that, he'd be perfect at Florida, by the way.
Oh, he would stir the pot in Gainesville in the SEC for sure.
Yeah.
So that's his decision. But I think right now he's coach of the year every year at Sporting News, and it's not much of a ballot right now.
Bill, I asked Gary this question earlier because I think they're probably okay, but their ranking and what they have left in front of them and the teams that are behind them pique my curiosity. If Notre Dame wins out, they good 100%? Or is there any concern that there are teams behind them that could move them back to the shuffle that all of a sudden they find themselves on the outside looking in.
Oh, they got the right helmet. That's where we're talking about
right.
the helmet. They got the right helmet. They're fine.
Okay.
They're 11. Although, depending on who you talk to, right? Like that Northern Illinois loss is very bad.
Yep.
It's not. It's unsightly in some ways. Again, I'm a MAC guy, and they're just an okay team. Notre Dame, much like Indiana, and I'm glad we're talking about these two teams, honestly, because one of my thoughts about last night was, okay, are they going to put this, Notre Dame over Indiana or vice versa? I think they have Notre Dame in the right spot. Yes, that was a bad loss, but this is a new environment. Their defense is elite. Notre Dame's is. I think it's really, really good. And Riley Leonard's come along at quarterback, but they've got to win out. And, it's wild that they do have a couple ranked victories and that the Army game is going to be a huge 100 years after the Four Horsemen game. And that, for a college football nerd like me, I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
We talk about brands and logos and helmets and the blessing of the Big Ten and the SEC to be the power conferences. Do you think on the initial reveal yesterday, Penn State got some brand love that helped them more than anything?
Yeah, they're getting criticized more than anybody else right now. But I think some of that's recency. Like I had this discussion on a podcast last night with a host that was very vehemently against Penn State. What have they done? And, what is it other than their jersey? And yeah, some of it's their jersey. But at the same time, are they getting credit for a close loss against Ohio State? I still think, the criticism there is, man, just run the ball on 4th and goal.
Mm-hmm.
Run the ball as fans, I'll ask you guys that question. So if it's 4th and 1 and your favorite team's playing, wouldn't you rather, and you have a huge tight end like Tyler Warren that you can just give the ball to the middle, can't you live with that more than a pass into triple coverage? Yeah. I can.
Yep.
I can if they get stopped at the one that way, but that's just me. But to answer your question, they're getting a little brand love, but they're getting a little blowback. But again, there are 23 power conference schools, including Notre Dame, that have 2 losses or less. You want to stay on this list? Don't lose that 3rd game.
Yeah. Bill, BYU, where they were placed as number 9, obviously they're in the 4 spot, currently as the Big 12 projected champion. If they were to lose the Big 12 championship, is that another team that we're saying, all right, Big 12 looks like they're primed to only get 1, or could BYU, depending on who they play and game control, eyeball test, all that, could they survive it?
Yeah, I think the Big 12 is shaping up to be a 1-bid league, unless, and I can't believe I'm saying these things, unless Colorado keeps winning.
Yeah.
And Colorado gets to 10-2 somehow. And, maybe they get iced out of the championship, but we look at them and say, hey, man, it'd be kind of cool to watch Oregon play Colorado again. They have Shedeur, they have Travis, but that's a team that also lost to Nebraska. I think that's going to weigh them down. Yeah. But I like BYU. I like what they've done. They've found ways to win. They're living off turnovers a little bit. The quarterback's playing efficient. But I just think the way this field is shaping up, that the Big 12's probably got 1 bid. And the team that I think probably should have the most issue with everything that went on last night, believe it or not, I think it's SMU.
Yeah.
I think they should be in the 12 right now.
Yeah, and things could change. They're sitting at 13. I'm with you, because then it becomes the eye test, body of work. I mean, their only losses to BYU, and they have looked good. But we've probably talked about this in the past, and this comes up once the first rankings come out and you sift through what the committee saw. Where do you stand on the explanation of it's about the eyeball test? What's the metrics that you use to tell Bill Bender, who has watched a ton of college football, that that's a good football team?
So hard to say because my eyeball test is so much different than I'm pretty good friends with the Grobe family, and Jim Grobe's on the committee. His son was a linebacker in college. I was his roommate. Great guy, great family. And I always talk to him about this afterward. And he said, college football coaches watch this game a lot differently than I do. So their eyes are tested. His eyes are tested a little bit differently. He coached in an Orange Bowl. I watch from my living room. So the way I look at it is, the most simple metric I use for all these data that we have. I was like, is this team scoring the most points? Is this team giving up the fewest points? Are they in the top 10 in both? And one thing I noticed is, as simple and rudimentary as that stat is, 6 of the 8 teams we have projected to make college football playoff quarterfinal are in the top 10 in total defense. I do think the defense has struck back a little bit. Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, Indiana, Notre Dame, those type teams. I like the teams that have a good defense. That's the eyeball test for me.
You mentioned SMU. I want to see if there are any other teams that are on the outside looking in that you think either we will see in the college football playoff, or now there's some eliminator games. We know the LSU, Alabama, that's going to be big too, but teams that look like even with 2 losses are playing damn good football and are going to play their way in.
It's Ole Miss this weekend. You know, you check their metrics, you're like, wow, look how many points they score. Man, they don't give up anything.
Yeah.
They have 2 3-point losses that were born out of giving up 4th down conversions to Kentucky and LSU. They should have beat LSU. I know shoulda, woulda, coulda. I get that. But they're a really good football team, and this is their weekend to shine. If they beat Georgia, and I think they can, it's a trendy upset pick, but I think they can, they'll be in the top 12 next week. And that bumps somebody out because, I mean, as long as Ole Miss finishes 10-2, they're kind of, you know, you guys are Big Ten guys like me. They're Penn State of the SEC. those 2, I mean, that's why they played in that bowl game last year. They should play in the first round.
Yeah. Let me ask you, because you've seen them now. The Nebraska team that was in Columbus to where Nebraska is post UCLA, before USC on a bye week, and Dana Holgorsen just arrived. What's your thoughts, Bill, on Nebraska through in year 2 of Matt Rule and 9 games into the second year?
It's still consistency, right? Like the team I saw at Ohio State was amazing. You know, I know they didn't win the game, but they were flying to the football and defense. They weren't committing turnovers. They were the more mature team all the way down to the end, honestly. I know they didn't score at the end of the game, but they weren't the one having a fan base throw things on the field and having a coach nearly get a personal foul. I mean, I think Matt Rule, probably that was one of his best coach games. Now, I think psychologically, we can all say bowls don't matter. They need to get to a postseason game. They need to win one of these games. They need to, even if it's like the guaranteed rate bowl, you got to get to a bowl game. And we have bowl projections up. I know I have them in one of them. I think they'll do that. And then you build around Raiola going into next season. But there are blips of, okay, this is real, but it's the consistency, right? You can't lose the next one. You can't. That's the old Lou Holtz, what do you always say? You don't let Ohio State beat you twice, and you can't have that happen.
You've also watched USC. Nebraska, both Nebraska and USC are off. Maybe that's their best opportunity. Maybe it's Wisconsin, who look like they'd figured some things out. They've taken it on the chin here a little bit as of late. But USC in a very interesting spot. If they don't make a bowl game, Bill, what's your thoughts on Lincoln Riley and his overall field there at USC after what has been a very unsuccessful, at least to this point, unsuccessful debut in the Big Ten?
Right. Yeah, the swings in this conference are amazing. You know, I think for them, this was a team after the LSU game, I thought, okay, they're ready. I wrote a big feature about Miller Moss. He's a good kid. And it just hasn't worked out since. I think that Michigan game really broke their back in some ways. And it takes a year for Oregon's the exception, but for USC, Washington, and UCLA, it takes a year to adjust when you play in a different conference.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, look at the Big 12 schools. BYU was terrible its first year in the Big 12. So I think that's some of it. The rest is he won't get fired, but they're going to have to figure some things out. And, you know, in this playoff, this new 18-team conference era, there are going to be violent swings in your record. You know, USC could do that and be 10-2 next year. Michigan, same deal. They're 5-4. They're probably going to finish 6-6, meaning the Sharon Moore hangover or honeymoon, depending on what you want to look at it. Probably a hangover at this point. They're going to have to get it together at Michigan because they can't live off of what Jim Harbaugh did. And I will be one to say that, by the way, anybody watching Jim Harbaugh in the NFL, maybe it was the coach and the coordinator. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
They are. Bill, as always, we appreciate the insight and your work and always your time you spend with us here in Omaha.
Anytime. You guys call back. Let's do it again in November. I appreciate you.
Appreciate it. That's Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Bill has Nebraska playing Phoenix. Guaranteed Rate Bowl.
Going to have a very good time there.
So they're not guaranteeing the rate anymore. It's just the rate.
It's just the Rate Bowl at 3:30 in the afternoon, so better than the late game last night.
Whoa,
All my
hold on
bitching.
here.
Why do they no longer guarantee the rate?
I don't know.
Well, hold on. What are you guys talking about?
It's the
Rate Bowl.
It's just the Rate Bowl now.
I still get emails from them. It's the Rate Bowl now.
It's not guaranteed rate.
It'd always be the Copper Bowl to me.
So does that mean and I didn't even notice this change at in the South Side, but is it now Rate Field?
Hold on here. What did
that just blow your mind?
Wow, all the things we've talked about today, that's what got him. The Rate Bowl.
Okay, so
3:30 Mountain Time.
So did Guaranteed Rate change their name?
I think so. I think they dropped the guarantee.
Oh, yes, okay. So a company rebrand.
Yeah.
It is the Rate Bowl.
Isn't that kind of
That's a terrible name.
Yeah. Well, and you really got to emphasize that T.
Buffalo
Doesn't
Wild
that
Wings.
really
Insight.com.
saying.
Insight.
You're going to the what bowl?
The damn Copper Bowl.
Doesn't that kind of
presented by Weiserlock
dilute the strong? If you're getting a rate, you want it guaranteed. Now you're just getting a rate.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That's kind of.
You'll be guaranteed to have a good time in Phoenix.
I don't know this. Maybe I need to ask my buddy Carmen DeFalco. Did they change it at the White Sox Stadium to now just Rate Field?
Doesn't matter. Nobody goes to their games.
I think it's still Guaranteed Rate.
How are they
Guaranteed Rate Field
until next year when it's just
Rate Field? God, that'd be awful.
Such a White Sox thing.
So Bill has Nebraska playing West Virginia in the Rate Bowl in Phoenix.
The what?
Dana against West Virginia?
Maybe that's why.
Ooh.
What was it? What has he been gone? 5 years from West Virginia?
Yep.
Yeah. And they're like me. They hold grudges.
So is West Virginia the new Texas A&M to Nebraska athletics?
That was a good place to go. That was a good place to go.
I want to give you a little nugget about Lincoln Riley. I know that he's not going to get fired.
To save his life.
No.
Tell you what, is next Saturday in the Coliseum at 3:00 Central Time a desperate game for both teams?
Yeah.
So USC has to win 2 of the last 3 to get to a bowl game. I want to give you this nugget because I was
Notre Dame.
I was looking some stuff up about Lincoln Riley. Do you know that he only lost 10 games in the 65 that he coached at Oklahoma?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's lost 10 games in the last 16 that he has coached at USC.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys believe in luck?
Yeah. I've been told if it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have none.
At OU, when he was the head coach, they won a lot of one-score games.
Yep. Do you remember that?
All of a sudden at USC this year, they're 2-6
Mm-hmm.
in one-score games. So, everything, because one of the things that was lost on people on Saturday in Lincoln, that was another one-score loss for Nebraska.
Yeah, it sure was. Yeah. You're right. It didn't get as much run.
People forget.
It did not.
Have we just become immune to it? Like, well, of course it was.
But so I'm seeing this and I'm hearing this talk on some USC message boards about close losses is that they will regress to the means. So it is just 1 year, they'll be fine. I want to chime in and go, have you not followed Nebraska football?
Yep. Oh,
so do you guys,
not so fast.
But do
One
you guys,
decade will be fine.
But do you guys believe in luck?
I do.
Like at Oklahoma, now they had players. I think you got to have dudes. Dudes make plays in crunch time. Dudes win football games more often than coaches winning football games. But you got to have some guys that have the DNA that when it's nut cutting time, they say, not today, put the scalpel down. I'm holding on to mine. And they go out there and they make a play. That'd be great if they said that exactly the same way.
Verbatim.
But at USC, I don't think USC is a bad team. And I look at some of their close losses because they're happening in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
That do you guys believe in luck? Because that's the USC thing is, you know what? They're not as lucky this year. They're going to be fine.
No.
Because around here, we never talk about luck.
No,
we never say the one-score losses that Nebraska has accumulated. Oh, man, they just have bad luck. Well,
no, talk about the players. Talk about the coaching decisions.
Exactly. That's what they're talking about at USC. On most cases is, this is just a year they're unlucky. Lincoln Riley has had luck in the past. They'll be back. They won't have to worry about these one-score games being so one-sided again.
And
An interesting move.
Maybe they're right. But if you start seeing more of that next year too, and see, when I say I believe in luck with college football teams, anytime there's a national champion, and you can throw any sport into this one, you always talk about, I think luck has to do more with injuries. Were you able to stay healthy? To me, that's a luck thing because freak injuries can happen. Hell, guys can blow an ACL going to class. So to me, the luck part of it is also
go to class.
Also connects with the injury part of it. Were you lucky in the injury department? And then there can be that flukish bounce in a game that how the hell did that happen? Like the interception to end the game against UCLA. That was really bad luck for Nebraska. But, we're used to it. But there's an example of, let's say.
All the ways for that game actually
right
on Saturday.
Right? So
this is what would have been like if Missouri caught it.
When Nebraska wins a national championship in 1997, you could say, and they had a little bit of luck because of the Missouri game too, which, hey, you're never going to apologize about it. But when you have more than a few losses and there's a trend and it's happening late in games or in the fourth quarter, at some point you have to look at decisions being made on the sideline, turnover margin, the players you have on the roster, all of those things to me matter. I think you can convince yourself that we're just not getting the breaks. Sometimes I mean, luck, just not the breaks. Well, the breaks can be one of several things that I don't consider what USC is going through or the ridiculous amount of one-score losses that Nebraska has as just bad luck.
Would you like to guess what the other one-score win was in the 97 season?
For Nebraska?
Yeah, they had two.
Mizzou.
For the 45-38 overtime win.
This is a trick question.
It's actually, I thought I knew what it was, and I just reminded myself that, yes, I'm correct on this.
Was this non-conference?
Is that your guess?
Trying to remember. Okay, they beat Washington on the road.
Central Florida.
No, but now that game was interesting.
Oh, no, that's 98.
Well, no, 97.
97?
97, they beat Central Florida by 2 scores.
It was close.
That was Dante Culpepper.
Yeah.
Remember, Dante Culpepper came in here and was dealing.
Yes, he was.
That was also the game that everybody wanted Frankie London at halftime.
Yep. I don't know.
So they blew out Akron.
Yeah.
Many do.
Then Dante Culpepper was dealing.
Yeah.
Close game at half. Then they went to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had the Mizzou game, but there was a game at the end of that month that Nebraska
was a Colorado game.
Nebraska tinkled down their leg because they were up by
they
were up by 24.
That's right. And they
were driving and they fumbled.
Yep.
And then Colorado scored 2 touchdowns. All of a sudden it's 27-24 and you're like,
that's right.
How did this game get to this situation?
Yep. Colorado.
And then they went and they kicked the out of Texas A&M down in San Antonio. I had a lot of fun that day.
So did I. I enjoyed watching the Aggies
and kicked the crap out of Peyton Manning and his really saggy knee. He had a very saggy knee. It was weird looking.
Remember? A saggy knee?
Yeah, it was saggy. Remember because it had so much fluid and then they kept trying to drain it and it was like just weird.
A baby.
There were some real weird things going on with that knee. Because, he had the big fluid buildup. Then they kept trying to drain it. When they drained, there was a picture of when they drained it, and it was just all this loose sagginess on his knee.
Did not need that visual this morning.
I'm just telling you.
Many are saying that T. Martin was better at quarterback against Nebraska than Peyton Manning.
He actually was. He was more effective.
But how come T. Martin doesn't ever come to the College World Series and be embraced?
He should be. I think many Nebraska fans would be like, hey, and might say the exact same thing, too. Actually, they should sit next to each other, see who Nebraska fans appreciate more. Probably still be Peyton Manning.
I mean, what if I would have told you that in that game, Scott Frost would throw for 9 less yards than Peyton Manning?
Just 9.
There's a trivia question.
Because Peyton Manning,
Peyton Manning Frost.
Was, 21 of 31 through that pick.
Yeah.
He was at 134. Frost was pretty efficient. I think 3 or 4 incompletions, and he threw for 125. Like Sheldon Jackson had a big game.
Yep.
Newcomb caught a 22-yard pass. I think Matty D had one in there as well.
All you need.
That was the Amon Green game. He ran for 206.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a speech at the end, and we won a national championship, and the polls were wrong.
And the defense was good.
The polls were wrong. Should have been unanimous. The polls were wrong.
Yep, that is true.
People think that the polls have just been wrong over the last 3 presidential elections. I'm telling you, 1997.
Yep.
Yeah. 1994.
Mm-hmm.
The polls have been wrong before.
And we had the closing argument given by one Scott Frost. Anybody with a clear conscience thinking Nebraska not number one, get your head checked.
Said it just like that.
Maybe if he said, you know what? Our policies are the same as they were in 94, 95, and 96. We don't change. I might be a new quarterback from the last time we won a national championship.
What are the exit polls telling us?
You know what? But I think our policies were pretty good. I'm sticking with them. And people went, ooh, okay. I like that. Because those policies prior were pretty good.
Yeah. What if you would have said that?
The chances of that?
I mean, there was a year of Stanford. There were Stanford education in there.
Who saying that?
There were of Scotty.
Pull this leg and it plays Jingle Bells.
There was Stanford education there, buddy.
It's only 2 years. Runs out after a while.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Scott's Stanford education was the Bill Walsh tree, okay?
It was. That's true.
Great video game.
People forget. Ivy Leaguer. Not Ivy Leaguer, but the Ivy League of the Pac-12.
People had forgotten until this past weekend, and then he got brought up on Big Red Overreaction. I'm like, oh, we've reached a whole new world. Thank God Christmas is coming. All right, mornings with Sharp and Handley. We'll roll on. Coming up at the top of the hour, Jay Moore. Brandon Vogel stops by as well on 1620 The Zone.
I have 8 different bosses right now.
I beg your pardon?
8 bosses.
8?
8, Bob. So that means that when I make a mistake, I have 8 different people coming by to tell me about it. That's my only real motivation, is not to be hassled. That and the fear of losing my job. But you know, Bob, that'll only make someone work just hard enough not to get fired. I generally come in at least 15 minutes late. I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour.
Space out?
Yeah, I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch, too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
Kill Switch Engage is coming to Omaha Saturday, March 29th at the Astro. Head to 1620thezone.com. Win your way into the show. God, I love it. What a great movie.
More true than you'd ever know when you see it as a teenager.
8 bosses, Bob.
Welcome back into the studio where the ratio of people to cake is too big. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Jimmy here as well. Jay Moore will stop by in 30 minutes to entertain us. The college football ranking show last night, where Joey Galloway is part of.
Yep. I'm a big fan, as you know.
Who's good with the Seahawks?
So brands and logos got a bump last night. Does Joey Galloway get a bump because he was in the league for a while?
No.
Why is Nebraska on NBC that color?
Looks like
because the dot.
District 2.
Yeah, I got the dot. The blue dot.
I was like, why are they? They're focusing on Nebraska.
Yep.
They
had a Holgerson update.
Do we want to guess his party affiliation?
Oh, man. That was a fun game we were having off the air yesterday. There are some tricky ones, but not as many as you think.
I think I would have a tougher time with Nebraska's current coaching staff compared to the previous one.
Oh. You think?
Just gonna
You think?
All right. Bill Bender was on here a little bit ago, and he's got a connection to Jim Grobe. Mac Rhodes is on the committee.
Yeah.
Jeez, just think about this. If Nebraska had a pulse and they were above water and they were like maybe a 2-loss team, because of the Baylor connection,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Nebraska might be in the playoff.
I know.
I mean,
I know.
all bias aside. Whenever I see these TV shows, so football is entertainment. Okay, and they need to treat that show like entertainment. Sometimes we get too deep in the weeds and we're trying to break everything down. It's about entertainment. And I think people are smart enough to say, okay, I'll digest for this for about 5-10 minutes and then we move on.
Yeah.
We do it a little bit longer here because that's our job. But you know that there's games to be played this weekend. It's going to change. We'll talk about it again next Tuesday. But they need to do something with the show and the committee. Why don't they ever do this? You brought up Joel Klatt earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They need to have more people that know ball, okay?
Yeah.
That watch ball, that have played ball, that talk ball. Like Joel Klatt would be the perfect person because he has played it, he has talked about it, and he loves ball, and he knows ball.
Yep.
What I would do is I think you have a combination, because what are there, 12 on the committee?
Right, including Mike Riley.
So you have some ex-players. You have some ex-coaches. Why don't you have more I know ball personalities on a committee? Why are they afraid to include people that are in the media on the committee?
Great question. Because a lot of those guys...
Because they'll be biased. Oh, my God, that's a Fox guy. So
Yeah.
he must be advocating for the Big Ten. I'm here to tell you, Big Ten doesn't need any help.
No.
Okay?
No, they're good with 4.
Oh, my God. Or we can't have Herbstreit on the committee because he's on ESPN and
Yeah.
he's going to talk about it. They don't need any help.
Yep. Entrenched into it every day, every week. Guys that
3 ex-coaches,
yeah.
3 ex-players, 6 personalities that know ball.
Well, and one of those personalities is going to be, Gary, they're going to be ex-coaches or players, more likely ex-players.
Yeah, ex-players. But they know ball and they know how to talk about ball.
Yep.
And they know if a team is good or not. Penn State is living off the helmet.
Yeah.
Penn State
where's their best win?
Penn State should not be ahead of Indiana. I've watched enough of Indiana this year, and maybe this sentiment is still prevalent around here. I don't know how it would be. Indiana's really good. Okay? They might not be good in 2025, but We don't even know if we'll be here in 2025. In 2024, Indiana is a really good team matched up against their peers.
Yep.
But the only reason that they'll trail Penn State is because they got a letter on the side of their helmet instead of a blank thing on the side of their helmet. That's the way I look at this, because you can't sit here and say, oh, Penn State's resume compared to Indiana's, oh, Nittany Lions all day. Indiana has outscored their opponents by 296 points. They've trailed briefly, which they did for the first time at Michigan State. Indiana is a really good football team, okay? Just look at the play, not the logo, and you would see that they are ahead of Penn State. But Penn State's benefiting from the brand, because show me a quality win on Penn State's schedule, and I also say, show me a quality win on Indiana's schedule. But I'm looking at how they play football against the teams they played against.
I agree. This is the brand bias, and this is why I didn't try to get all that hung up on it last night, because I even think, and we were having a discussion about Miami yesterday about how Miami wins games. Okay, and this is where that whole eyeball test comes into play of, okay, if you look at what Miami has done, best win Louisville, but that game was chaotic. Could have lost to Cal and Virginia Tech in back-to-back weeks. Chaotic. So it's not like, if we're talking about game control, eyeball test, all of that, for people who think that is going to apply from top to bottom, you're completely delusional. It only applies to the non-brands. Indiana, which, again, good on them, because what they're doing right now is their game control, their point differential is so extremely high.
You just used a good committee word. Not good on you.
Yeah.
Game control.
And that's I hate that they use that, but they don't apply it to everybody. Because if we're going to use game control, then what are we talking about with Miami? Look, Miami, okay, Clemson, what they did last week, now that obviously shoots a hole into this whole conversation. Miami is a team that obviously is going to represent the ACC right now as the current league champion. But as far as their overall ranking compared to some of the other teams, is Miami ranked appropriately at number 4, where they would be the 3 seed right now, because based on some of those metrics? But the Indiana part of it, this one I think is interesting. For people who think the brand bias, and maybe there's not a lot of people who even think this, but anybody who thinks brand bias is overblown. A team this time last year, your number 2 and number 3 team in the first unveiling of the college football playoff, were both Michigan at number 2 and Georgia at number 3. At the time, neither one of those teams had a signature quality win. The point differential for Michigan at the time was just ahead of where Indiana is right now. The point differential for Georgia was almost a full touchdown below what Indiana's is right now. Yet they were ranked 2 and 3 respectively. Same type of resume as far as where was the quality win. So Indiana, with everything that they've done, yeah, they don't have that signature win, but they've looked good in the process. And this is where I go back to football guys being able to watch that team and say, I don't need to see them against Ohio State to make my declaration that this Indiana team is very good. But unfortunately for Indiana, it's going to come down to, how do they look against Ohio State? If they can win that game or lose respectively, then we can validate Indiana. Hell no. You've seen it. I've seen it. Indiana's a damn good team. And Penn State, I'm wondering, where's Penn State's best win? And if we're talking game control, point differential, that's way off of Indiana. Again. Oh, I'll use it till the cows come home. No, I'm glad you brought up the Penn State thing, because I think you should flip Penn State and Indiana. But unfortunately, there is a brand bias. Unfortunately, Penn State is going to draw a lot more eyeballs than what Indiana is going to get. That's the reality of it. And I'm not saying this is a travesty and this needs to change. It won't ever change. But if we're looking at teams that right now, from a resume standpoint, should be ranked higher than the other, yeah, you can make that argument without question about Indiana to Penn State.
Damn, it feels good to be a Big Tenner. Yeah. Sticking with the Office Space theme.
Just like a gangster.
Because if you are in the Big Ten or the SEC, you are in a great spot.
Mm-hmm.
You have 8 of the 12 spots that are taken, and that isn't going to change.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'd love to be in the 5 spot. Like, if you look at Ohio State,
yep,
Ohio State's in a really good spot.
The way that played out last night, too, I immediately thought of, and I'll give you credit. You've talked about that for a long time, but look at that path. Look at that path.
You would play
neutral site BYU.
Let's say nothing changes. So you're going to get a home game against Boise State. That'd be an entertaining game.
Yeah.
I looking at the initial matchups, if this was the final bracket, I'd be pretty excited.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Notre Dame and Penn State.
Yeah.
Alabama.
Future Big Ten game.
Alabama and Texas playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are all bangers right out of the gate.
Tennessee having to go to Bloomington, Indiana in the middle of December.
Yeah.
But again, if you're the 5 seed, you get to host a game. You're going to play the 12 seed. Now, if Boise State wins out, will the committee have enough to move them out of 12 and move them maybe to 11? Because if they win out, not a bad resume.
Yeah.
The only bad loss would be Oregon. And they were competitive against Oregon. And there was some things that may have gone the way of the brand in that game.
And could you get Notre Dame, Ohio State? Notre Dame is a 12.
Possibly. But then you would play the 4, which would be the lowest seeded of the group, or the Power 4 conference winners. Boom. Then you'd be in the semis against Oregon, and you'd I like our chances here. 5 is the way to go. That's why if I'm Notre Dame, when they made the rules and you could still get a home game, but you couldn't be in the 4, but you could be the 5, I'm like, that's ideal. Because you do get a home game, and then you're going to play the 4, and then all of a sudden you're in the semifinals, and after that, who knows what could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, the 5, the way that it played out last night, immediately, that was the first thing I looked at, was the 5-12 matchup, if it all started today, 5-12 matchup, and then what, if you're going to put all your money, all your chips on the 5 seed to win that game, having the home field advantage, and then playing a neutral site against, okay, what does that 4 team look like? BYU is that 4 team? Okay, wow. I would take that. Now, I think BYU is a good team, but if you're Ohio State.
They got dissed.
Yeah, they did.
They got dissed.
I agree.
They don't like the Mormons. I mean, BYU has look at, they have a win over K-State.
Yep. They have 2 top 20 wins.
And they beat SMU.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 2 top 20 wins.
Brand bias.
More wins.
No Mormons on the committee.
More quality wins than Penn State. This isn't the bagging on Penn. Well, maybe not.
Where's Danny Ainge? Where's Andy Reid?
Jim McMahon.
Where's Robbie Bosco? Where's Coy or Ty Detmer?
Robbie Bosco.
Oh, yeah. I think that wins.
Coy Detmer.
People forget Robbie Bosco was in the mix to win the national championship.
Mm-hmm. People forget Jim McMahon ruined SMU's chance at a national title. Actually, no,
SMU
that was just a
ruined
bowl
SMU's
game.
chances at a lot of things.
Just think about how powerful BYU used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just rattled off from the late Lavelle Edwards
to Tanner Mangum,
all the quarterbacks. Nowadays, what?
Sorry, I had to.
You can get, 1 or 2.
Yeah. Well, they did have Taysom Hill too on that team who didn't start in that game,
and he kicked Texas's ass once in Austin.
Remember Taysom Hill? God, that has been almost 10 years ago. The Hail Mary against Nebraska, thrown by one Tanner Mangum, not Taysom Hill. What was wrong with Taysom Hill? Did he have a knee or something?
He has 2 of them.
He was injured coming into the game.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what. And then remember, they also had like half the roster was suspended from the previous year's bowl game.
They drink coffee?
What are you trying to do?
I don't know. I'm just bringing up some great moments in BYU football.
Hey,
that's a good question, though. What are you trying to accomplish right now? You went BYU. I immediately went there as soon as I got off the Jim McMahon thing.
One of the first calls after that BYU game to Big Red Overreaction wasn't about, oh, Jesus, they hired Mike Riley to lose that way. Some guy called in and he ripped Mike Kavanaugh.
Oh.
And I'm like, welcome to Nebraska.
Let's go right after the offensive line.
Nebraska just got beat by a Hail Mary, a 42-yard pass at the gun, and a guy calls up Big Red Overreaction. He goes, that Mike Kavanaugh sucks. He goes, they can't run the ball. He goes, the guy sucks.
Weird.
I'm like, well, the defense did give up 511 yards that day.
To a backup quarterback.
Now, there would be a home and home that I would love to see Nebraska get engaged with.
BYU.
Yeah.
It's very pretty.
Go out to Provo. BYU come in here.
Yeah, I'd love to go out there.
Great view from the
I've
press
never
box.
been to Utah ever. Ever.
Well, I'll be there next weekend.
There,
of course you will.
We can FaceTime you from there.
It's going to cross off all the states that you're going to cover in a matter of 30 days.
And we'll be in Florida and Minnesota.
2-1 this
within the next 36 hours.
Yeah.
I think. No, we would play Thursday night. All right.
You're going to one red state and one blue state.
Taysom Hill in that game ran 9 times for 72 yards, threw for 268.
In which game?
Against Nebraska.
I thought, oh, yeah, that's right. He was, okay. He didn't throw the Hail Mary. That's right.
BYU guy, a media guy was sitting close to us, and he goes, oh, yeah, that guy's 26.
Mm-hmm. Well, he already did his mission.
Not Taysom Hill, but they had another player, and he goes, oh, yeah, he's 26.
Yeah.
He's got 2 kids, and his wife works in Provo. Like, this guy had the whole rundown.
Nice.
I'm like, Nebraska's screwed today.
Episode of House Hunters.
Also,
now the 26-year-old's very
might
common.
be one of the rare times in that game of late, going a decade, where Nebraska had a quarterback throw for over 300 yards. Tommy was dealing that day.
Yep. Unfortunately, the defense wasn't clicking.
Mike Kavanaugh sucks. That's what the guy called up. Wasn't like, man, I'm heartbroken. I can't believe the Riley era began. Mike Kavanaugh sucks.
Please tell me you're on the Miami one too.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Following week.
It was a rough year. I was on the Illinois one.
Oh gosh, I was in Mexico for that.
Yeah.
I remember we were watching that
Maybe should have stayed there.
at a beachside bar watching that. Could not believe what we just saw.
Jay Moore, about 15 minutes away. Does he believe what he saw on Saturday, and what is the fix? We'll get into. He had some interesting thoughts last night on Big Red Wrap Up about Dana Holgorsen and adding him to the staff. I don't think we should get caught up on the air raid stuff. I think we need to open up the playbook and the air raid and look at what the second page says. I'm very intrigued by Dana has always been good at designing running plays, but it's all about points, ma'am. Got to score some points. Draw me plays that end up in the end zone, sir. That'd be my interview for a new offensive coordinator. What plays can you design that end up in the end zone? Show me. Because they do. When you put plays, when you do the squigglies,
yeah, and then it goes
the
way.
They never stop like after a 7-yard gain. They always go to the end zone.
Wouldn't that be great if they did just stop at like 4 yards? Like this is our 3rd and 4 play right here. It's going to get you 4. Probably not going to give you much more, but good God, it's going to nail 4 every time.
Yeah, that book is already being shared in Lincoln. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. 1620 The Zone. Hey, good on the Washington Commanders yesterday. They are 7-2. They realize the potential they have with Jaden Daniels.
Must be nice.
They go all in on Lattimore. Now they gave up a lot,
Yeah,
but they realize their potential. Good on them.
Agreed.
But I mean, I don't know who's going to compete. I don't know who's going to derail the Lions in the NFC.
And they made a huge. I mean, just one move, but it was a huge move as well to get Zadarius Smith. Is he the same type of impact as Aiden Hutchinson? No, but look, you've got a squad like the Lions roster. That move yesterday again validates my point that the Lions are just doing very un-Lions-like things when it comes to their roster and understanding where their roster ranks amongst all the other teams in the NFC right now, knowing that they could acquire and maybe not completely fill a spot like Aiden Hutchinson, but they can get a guy that's also going to have an impact up front. And that just solidifies what is already, even without Aiden Hutchinson, it wasn't like anybody was going to think, ooh, this don't listen to Rex Ryan, that this was going to keep the Lions away from the Super Bowl. Cause I know that was his big hot take is Aiden Hutchinson just cost the Lions a Super Bowl. That's a bunch of crap. But
well, they only had 12 and a half sacks without him.
Well, and you know what's crazy is in the last 2 weeks and efforts that have been somewhat dominant defensively, they've only had 1 sack in the last 2, which proves my point. You can still win games without constantly getting to the quarterback, but they identified a guy they could get in an area that they could improve up front, and they did that. The Lions continue to make amazing decisions with this roster, but also understanding their window now. And it sucks because it's in the division that I have rooting interest for, and it actually hurts my team, but it's hard not to be impressed with the way the Lions are doing business.
They finally figured out the GM and the head coach.
Yeah, you're right.
And they got the quarterback. I mean, they had the quarterback, but they weren't as great at the head coach and the GM position.
Mm-hmm.
They are all aligned in Detroit. They're a fun team to watch. Goff never throws a incompletion.
Yeah.
Him and St. Brown are unbelievable together. They're a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
I look at Thanksgiving Day.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions, I mean, they're going to be the Lions will be the team to watch. Usually they're like, hey, just let's just go straight to the Cowboys. You know what? If I was a sleep company, like for betting or pillows, I would buy all the national advertising for the Giants Cowboys Thanksgiving game. And I would advertise good sleep.
Take your nap then.
I mean, there's no more political ads on Fox, so you can buy up the inventory.
Yeah.
I would promote my bedding, my bed. I would sell that. I would be a sleep, I don't know, whatever you call them, companies, and that's what I would promote. They actually should buy to be the game sponsor of the Cowboys and the Giants.
Well, and unfortunately
for
Bears fans like me that have to watch 11:30 against the Lions, our meal is not going to go down very easy.
No. But you know what? You'll get an American nap. That's how they
should. That's right.
Hey, that's how
they
should sell the middle game of Thanksgiving is an American nap.
Yeah. This is the great American. Yeah, the great American nap.
Meanwhile, I will be watching the 94 Cowboys-Packers Thanksgiving game on YouTube after our meal.
Leon Lett. You always have him.
Always.
Here is Kool-Aid Steve. Hello.
Good morning, gentlemen. Isn't it a glorious day?
The sun is shining.
Oh, no. It's way more than that, and you guys know why. Okay. I'm not even going to bring it up. So, who's paying for this consultant?
The athletic department, I believe.
Well, why wouldn't it come out of Rule's salary? Since he's the one that can't figure out what's going on. Why the hell do we need to hire somebody else when 80,000 people in the stands can tell you what the problem is? Play calling an offensive line. Why do we need somebody else to tell him what to do and what not to do at more cost? Sounds a little bit like our government in Washington.
But it's not. It's not your money that they're spending to have a consultant come in. Now, I'm not. I think you're onto something about you are the head football coach. You should be able to see it and fix it. But I think he's just backing up his opinion to lay the groundwork for 2025 with this. But the money, it's not costing you anything, Steve. Why should it matter?
Well, what it matters is that he's the leader. He's the figurehead. He's the one that's getting paid $9.25 million a year. And if you can't figure it out, why did we hire you in the first place?
Well,
okay,
I'm with you on that line of thinking. I think this is the door opened. The door. No, we've agreed before. The door is open.
Okay.
The door is open for 2025, and this is an opportunity to start on 2025 sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Don't make this more complicated than it is. Dana Holgorsen is here for a reason, and he's not here to get free breakfasts at the NBC Suites. He's here to evaluate the roster and to start preparing for 2025.
And to tell everybody that's listening, you know what? This offensive coordinator maybe isn't a good fit, and we need to make a change. Whether that ends up being Dana or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that takes the burden.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Now I think that's a cop-out. That's just me personally. I worked for the city of Omaha, and the minute we couldn't get snow done in a timely manner or potholes filled in a timely manner, instead of holding the people that made those decisions feet to the fire, we hired a consultant to come in and say, well, you should do this and this and this and this. Well, why is that person in that position drawing a paycheck if they can't make those decisions themselves? That means they're not qualified or they can't do the job. Okay. Now, I remember Rule and his wife saying that we got together and we got down on our knees and this is where the Lord wants us to be. Now, what really irritated me about that is where he wants you to be for $9.25 million a year, but when they offered you the position at $6 million a year, now the Lord says, nope, not where we want you to be.
That's a little bit of reach.
Then they came back around and he held them hostage for more money.
Yeah.
Is that true or not true?
No, that's not true.
So was he offered the job first, declined it, and then he was offered the job later and accepted it?
No. I know that for a fact. Steve, we got to move on. Thank you. Good to hear from you. Haven't heard from Steve in a while. Jay Moore joins us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, halfway home of the week. That means it's time for a little Jay Moore in your life. He joins us now. Good morning. It's coming. He's coming.
Oh, there he is.
Very
that vest.
Oh, my man.
What time's when's the tea time?
Not today. Not this week. Too much work going on. Just getting that time of year too. Just time to take some time off.
Well, you look like you got a little cold weather gear on.
Yeah, I got a jacket. I was in Birmingham this last weekend, Alabama, playing in a golf tournament. So I got some nice swag from the event. So I'm rocking one of the pieces we got. So
what course did you play at in Birmingham?
So the event was at the Country Club of Birmingham.
Okay.
A really good 36-hole facility. 118's Pete Dye. The other is Donald Ross. And I've been going down there for 3 years. A little 54-hole individual mid-am event, and they do a fantastic job down there with the event. Director of golf is actually a Nebraska guy, Eric Eshelman. He played golf here in the early 90s. His son's a good golfer at Auburn. I go down with a bunch of Nebraska guys every year. We rent a house and just kind of get amongst it for a few days and play some golf, have some drinks, and then kind of it's a good way to wrap up the year.
If you ever played Ballantrae, let me know, because that's where my in-laws actually lived there for a little bit, right off Ballantrae, and I've heard it's kind of a cool course. So I was curious.
I've never. The only place I've played in Birmingham is Country Club Birmingham.
Okay.
But Birmingham has a ton of good golf courses down there. It's kind of a under the radar spot. There's probably 6 or 7 other good golf courses down there. So need to get down there more often, or just go down earlier on this trip and play. But yeah, it's back home and getting ready for the cold weather, I guess.
Hey, slow the roll a little bit there. Before we talk about the thing in Lincoln, I
you want to talk about the election? Okay.
We're good.
Okay. Where would you like to know? But I do want to bring something up because I think this is kind of cool in your football life. So you played for the legend Mark Wortman. Elkhorn's season is over, and I guess I knew this was coming, but I didn't realize that finally, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, Coach Backus at Elkhorn, that was it last week. 48 years of coaching as an assistant coach at Elkhorn is an incredible career.
That's unbelievable. I can't believe Coach Wortman was able to. I can believe he was able to go as long, but Coach Backus was there before Mark Wortman. I think Coach Backus got there in 78. I believe Mark Wortman got there in 83, around that time frame. John was. He is. If you know John Backus, he's a beauty. Yeah. He is one of the best. He is a wealth of sports knowledge. I think he can go back and tell you the score and who won every single Super Bowl.
It doesn't shock me.
He's played basketball at UNK back in the day. Has plenty of crop stories on that. But referees baseball in the summers. And I didn't realize this until I was like my second or third year at Elkhorn. He's very superstitious. He's a huge Celtics fan, so he wore a Celtics jersey underneath his coaching polo every single game.
Really?
Wow.
Yes, I guarantee, and he's continued to do it for 40 some years, however long he was coaching. So yeah, I learned something. I saw that one time. I'm like, what's that green? You could see it kind of underneath his coaching polo, and he goes, "It's a little Boston Celtics shirt or jersey or whatever it is." I don't know if it was Larry Bird or whatever it was, but very, very superstitious that he wore that underneath his coaching polo or jacket, whatever it is. But he was awesome. I spent a lot of time with Coach Backus. He was a running backs coach, and I played running back in high school, so a lot of time spent and a lot of good talks too. Just taking his classes, and he's a good man. Elkhorn's had a lot of good coaches, good people come through there.
Yeah, he's one of the best humans you'll ever meet.
Nicest guy ever. Yeah. And you mentioned him up in baseball. That's where he and I's paths crossed a lot. And for a guy, there's sometimes like, all right, John, you got to get back to calling the game here because we're in between innings. There was a lot of stories and I know you know this guy. And he is a wealth of knowledge of everything. But what a great individual.
Yeah, he needs to be. I'd hope Mark Wortman and John Backus will be eventually inducted to the Nebraska Coaches Hall of Fame. They're obviously very well deserving for all the input they've had just in the sport of football, but just in the athletics. And they've touched so many, it made a difference in so many kids' lives. I was just fortunate enough to be around them for 4 years, and it was a pleasure to call them coach. And Coach Backus helped out in the basketball team too. So he loved just contributing to athletics and being around young men and helping them evolve and become better men. So very fortunate to be around, Coach Wortman, Coach Backus all those years at Elkhorn.
You, Michael, and Damon last night tried to sum up what happened on Saturday. What did happen on Saturday? How did we get to this point that there has been this discussion a couple of days after UCLA, not about where Nebraska might go for a bowl game, but how are they limping into the bye, losers of 3 straight? What happened on Saturday from your viewpoint?
Yeah, gosh, it's hard. I'm still searching for answers and really trying to figure out what all went wrong, and it's obviously a multiple of things. I think UCLA is, the record wasn't quite a representation of who we thought they were. I think they have some talent on that football team, and they kind of put it all together. I'm not trying to make excuses here by any means. They threw a couple curveballs at Nebraska, and obviously they weren't prepared for. There was a UCLA beat writer that we had on Big Red Wrap-Up last week, and Mike was able to talk to him during the game at Lincoln. He's like, listen, I've never seen UCLA do these things at all through the first 7 games. They threw some wrenches into the game plan and changed up it a little bit. And I mean, Garbers was on point. So I'm not trying to make excuses. There's a little bit of element of that. Overall, I think this team just doesn't know how to win. I'm trying to figure that out. And I've said it before, losing's a habit, winning's a habit. And unfortunately, we don't have winning habits yet. At times it looks like it. At times we can have these even moral losses like we had against Ohio State. But the inconsistencies are still, very, very puzzling. And I'm still tripped up on how, potentially when they can get over this hump of having this inability to perform at a very high level and take advantage of opportunities. This was arguably one of their most winnable game here in November. You had a team that had some struggles, but found got some mojo going. But you show up and defense can't get off the field on 3rd down. That's a problem. I think the secondary's having some issues. They're the most inconsistent group, I think, out of this defense. Front 7 has played pretty well, I think, this year, secondary-wise. I get it. There's been some injuries and stuff, but they're just up and down. So I think the departure of Evan Cooper before the season start is playing a little bigger factor than I anticipated on that back end. But offensively, just can't get the things rolling. Inconsistencies all over the field. Just play calling issues, execution issues. Dylan just not looking comfortable back there, seeing some ghosts, it seems like, regressing a little bit. It just kind of all comes together at once. We've seen some of these issues at times early in the year, but I tell you what, in the Indiana game and then a little bit in this game, it just seems like the Achilles heel or things that had issues just kind of all show up at once, unfortunately. And then you don't put it together. The defense is getting, when the offense can't score points and this defense gets too much pressure put on it. I mean, I didn't even realize it that under Matt Rule yet. I mean, we're only 21 games in that this team has not won a football game when the opposing team scored more than 14 points.
Correct. Yep.
That's a problem. That's a huge problem. That just puts too much pressure on your defense. In my opinion, you have your pregame, goals as a defense. Usually, holding teams to 17 points is a win. And if your offense can't score more than 17 and get you, that's hard. That's a hard thing to do. So it's just they have some issues, and they just seem to all show up at once. And they don't play. And this is a game where they haven't played very well complementary football. You're going to have times when the defense isn't, playing well. They're going to have some issues, and that's going to happen. But you'd like to think the offense can pick it up and back them up and help them out, and that just hasn't been the case this year. And they got to, they're working on that as we speak. I know with bringing some extra eyes in there to get it handled this week during the bye.
I want to get to that here in a moment, but Jay, you brought up this is a team that doesn't know how to win part of it. And a lot of you laid out a lot of the things that are plaguing this team and things that show up when they lose a game. It's hard not to get into the psychological part of this. And unfortunately, it's still at least a question whether people buy into that part of it or not, that there is something hanging over this team. When you are able to go to a place like Columbus, Ohio, play free and loose just because everybody outside of the program thinks you're going to lose and probably get your doors blown off, that you have a better showing as opposed to a game where you can become bowl eligible, you're back at home against a team that comes in with 2 wins, and that juice or whatever people wanted to describe what Nebraska was lacking emotionally in that game. What do you chalk that up to? I mean, is it fair to say, yes, there's a physical element, but there's definitely a psychological element to this thing?
Oh, 100%. I think everybody in general, and we kind of talked about, we psychoanalyze everything, right? And you kind of have to when you have these inconsistent issues. And obviously there's some mental stability of this team that some guys play well one week and they don't the next. And that's whether having, you want to call it the championship mindset or just, preparing the right way. But I just chalk it up to, and whether it's from the staff on down and obviously with the players, dealing with expectations is hard.
Yeah.
And obviously they struggle with that. I couldn't agree more. When you are a 25-point underdog and no one gives you a chance, it's easy to go in there and play, and you got nothing to lose.
Yep.
But that's to me where this thing all differentiates is having that championship mindset or having that winning mindset or having that professional mindset. It doesn't matter who we're playing, what the point spread is. I'm going to continue to do what I need to do to prepare to do my best to get this team to where it needs to go. So obviously they're looking into things too much. They're reading too much. They're overanalyzing. They're over. There's some sort of effect that you can do it one week, but then the next it's completely different and against a lesser of an opponent. Mm-hmm. So that's a problem. That's a mental thing. And that's learning how to win. That's handling it's handling success. And I know they still lost, but they got a lot of people were singing their praises and was thinking this is how, they got over this proverbial hump. And obviously they haven't. So they got to, it's hard, man. It's really, really hard. And it's all the psychological philosophy stuff and preparing the right way and handling your business. And just because you did it well one week doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do it well the next week. You have to still prepare the same way and have that approach to where, okay, I did some things well last week, but how can I do it better? And not get complacent, not saying, oh, I got it now, man. We're good. Right, we're good now. We're going to go play. We got a UCLA coming in here. They're 2-5. No, man, I think we're good. I'll do the same things last week and everything's fine. It's like, no, that you just can't think that way. It's okay. I did my things well last week, but how can I do it better? And this is, I may be going into this too far, but this is where, as a football player, and this isn't the healthiest thing mentally for people. And I think most good football players remember their bad plays more than their good plays.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I think that's just part of it. You can play 60 snaps and have 58 good ones, but you are so pissed off that you had 2 bad plays that you make sure you never want to have it again. And that's what kind of motivates you week to week is your bad plays, not your good plays. And I'm not saying that's an issue, but I think I've been around a lot of good players, and they have great games, but they're still mad over one drop, one incomplete pass. one missed tackle, and that motivates them to make sure that never happens again. So, yeah, it's definitely there's a mental issue right now for sure.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys that they remember that a loss more than they remember a great win. Jay Moore joining us. So you add somebody on the offensive side of the ball to kind of look over what's going on. You also add somebody on the defensive side of the ball to look over what's going on and add some feedback. Can we expect much of an impact in the last 3 games, the last month of the regular season from what Rule added yesterday?
That's where we chatted about this a little bit last night. I don't think you can go in there and make wholesale changes. It's not like you're changing your whole scheme, obviously. And I don't think there's going to be huge drastic measures. I just think it's just going to be little things here and there. That's just maybe what it takes, offensively, defensively. I think defensively, they've been pretty damn good up front in the front seven. I think where they've struggled is on the back end. There's been lack of communication. The back end's played. Vision is so important, and the lack of that in the back end. I mean, everybody's been Deshaun Singleton's been bad with eyes. Isaac's been bad with his eyes. There's just been a little disconnect there. So just have another guy come in and whether he's talking to players or not, I'm guessing, the guy they brought in defensively, who had been with Rule at Baylor and Temple and even at Carolina a little bit, is he's probably just meeting with the coaches, right? And just chit-chatting with them and just trying to give them ideas to get their players in a more efficient position to succeed. And it's the same issue with Holgorsen. It's just little things. Hey, when you're in this formation, and listen, Nebraska's done some good things offensively as well. Let's highlight the good. Let's let them know what the good is, and let's look at how we can make that good even better. But then you look at the bad. Okay, how can we make that bad? How can we get it to the good? It's just formation stuff. How you're kind of setting up your play calls within the formations. How you're setting up calls later in the game. Philosophy things, that can potentially help. It's just I don't think it's gonna be drastic. I just think another eye, another voice, and it can't hurt. It can't hurt whatsoever this time because offensively, it just hasn't been good enough. And I appreciate Coach Rule taking these necessary steps. I think in previous years, staffs wouldn't have done this at all. I think that's a strength to show that, hey, I don't have the answers right now. I need to bring other people in. I appreciate that. But I can't. I don't think it's going to be. We're not going to start scoring 42 points on offense, right? By any means, no. But I think let's just get your good players in a little better positions to succeed and to help them out a little bit in one-on-one situations, route combinations, whatever it is, the running backs, line blocking, whatever it may be. Just get them a little more efficient. Just get them in better situations, and that could be a difference of picking up another first down on a third down play that gets a drive going, gets some momentum going, compared to where you're stalling out all the time and punting in and not scoring points.
I don't want to dismiss the player impact of these additions to the overall think tank right now. But as a player, Jay, I'm assuming, and maybe I'm way off on this, but I'm assuming you're so into the season and you're still very much aware that whether you're a member of the secondary or the defense in general, the things that you haven't maybe done to your standard, but the offense, especially knowing that there are things they need to work on, that this isn't a major disruption. And in fact, if as long as the head man is approaching it the right way, that this is just a welcome addition if you're, especially on that offensive side of the football, whether you're Dylan or you're Gunnar Gatula or you're Ramir Johnson or you're Jamal Banks, everyone should at least look at this as a positive and not necessarily as a distraction.
Yeah, I think so. Again, we kind of psychoanalyze everything Coach Rule says on Mondays. But he says, hey, I'm going to get this right. And if you're coming with me, great. If you're not, hey, that's okay. We can either go separate ways but I'm going to get this thing going to where it needs to go. And I love that. I love that no stone's going to go left unturned.
Yeah.
He's checking his ego right now. He's putting himself out there. It's like, hey, I'm checking, all these coaches on staff know the game of football. but it's not working. So how do we get it to work? How can we communicate better? How can we get you to execute on the practice field and take it from the practice field to the stadium on Saturdays? And it's just, if he's willing to go to these measures, his players better be ready to go to these measures too, and his staff better be ready to go to these measures as well. And understand, it's not any offense to anybody. It's just, we all want to win. We're not winning. We all want it to be a certain way. It's not the way we want it. And the head man saying, listen, it's not working. And I'm trying to do something in a very short matter of time to get us to a 6th win, to a 7th win, and get this thing over this hump. If players take offense to it or have a problem with it, or coaches have a problem with it, then they're not made for this. They're not the guys we want, in my opinion. And it's time to transfer, go somewhere else, because he's trying to do everything he can to get this thing over the hump and where it needs to go. And I'm very happy that he's a very humble man. It takes a strong man to stand up there and say, hey, listen, I don't have the answers. I have some answers, but I need some more help. I need help. That's a strength. And I like that. Whether or not they find another win this year, but I feel confident they're still going to come out and compete in these next 3 games.
Yep. And great stuff, Jay. As always, appreciate it. Good seeing you last night. Fantastic there as well. Have a great rest of the week on the bye, and we'll talk to you ahead of what will turn into be a pretty important game next weekend.
Yep, sounds good. Looking forward to it, boys.
That's Jay Moore, as always. Good stuff there. I think there's. I keep going back because I keep seeing this pop up on the stream. Is too many cooks in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Just this is the defensive side of the one is interesting to me because I think it's what's the disconnect between the defensive call and maybe what's going on in the back end?
Yeah.
Maybe John Butler, Tony White still getting familiar with each other.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is I responded to Steve and kind of what Jay was alluding to is that one is looking bigger picture down the road. So we get, we're often running into 25 with personnel, put them in the best place to succeed and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, if they had a game where they scored 28 here upcoming,
yeah,
we might celebrate.
But on the opposite end of that spectrum, if it's a lot of the same going forward, I don't want people to say, well, I thought Dana Holgorsen was going to change everything. If that's your thought going into this, that's not why that move was made. This wasn't for, like we said earlier, there are some subtle things, a couple tweaks here and there that maybe you can identify, suggest, and you can put into play as early as next week. Sure. But
I think the running, I think there could be a wrinkle or two with the running plays. But also, will there be a wrinkle or two with red zone? Those are the two things that I think initially Holgorsen with some ideas can help Satterfield because there's no creativity there. And that's the air raid gets a lot of discussion and go, hey, can the air raid work in the Big Ten? I mean, is the Big 12 going to work in the Big Ten? Well, we'll see. Let's
that
get
was
through
the thought with Phil Longo to Wisconsin
let's
too.
Get, let's get through the first 3 games. Let's get through the last 3 games. But he is very good at designing running plays. And so maybe there's a wrinkle there that uncorks something. But I think the red zone will be the biggest deal.
Yeah. And subtle, but nothing that obviously, hey, if you can convert a 3rd down and all of a sudden you're in the red zone and you're turning 7 as opposed to 3, or you're even getting points out of it as opposed to where you're getting turned away, you're going to take that. If you get point production is great, but as far as anything, any type of radical change as far as offensive philosophy, and all of a sudden the offensive line is going to be asked to block this way as opposed to what they've been doing all season, or the running backs are going to be asked to do this as opposed to what they've been doing. It's going to be a different version, maybe a more productive version of what they currently do right now, and then you continue to progress more in the offseason. But this whole, I think we're saying the same thing when you talk about the air raid and people thinking, is Holgorsen going to be on the sidelines? He's going to be in a headset. He's going to be calling plays. No, that's not the case.
He's going to be the head coach.
Is he going to have a Monday presser? Maybe. No, that's not happening. Will he be part of Coordinator Tuesday?
Will him and Marcus be up there together? Jesus. Brandon Vogel's got thoughts and more. He's about 15 minutes away. He's about ready to enter the green room on Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
1620 The Zone, proud to team up with the United States Marine Corps and Toys for Tots for Stuff the Truck 2024, December 6th and 7th. Stop by the 1620 The Zone studio parking lot and stuff the truck with new unwrapped toys for area children. All donations will support Toys for Tots. And if you can't make it to the event, donations can be dropped off at NRG Media during business hours Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. through Tuesday, December 10th. It's sponsored by Woodhouse Chevy and Molina Healthcare of Nebraska. More details are online at 1620thezone.com/stuffthetruck.
Hey, Jimmy, your wife would know. Are we? We're doing that again here in this parking lot?
Yeah, I
Yes.
already signed you guys up. Don't worry.
Yes.
I'll be out of town.
I was just going to say, I didn't even tell you the dates, but I guess I just told you the dates.
Yeah. I'll be here that day. I've actually enjoyed that day here. We've had a good time.
Yeah, actually, Reese
bonded
was a part
with
of
Reese
that.
last year.
Yeah, Reese was a part of it last. He got really pumped when Santa came by. So yeah, and then
I got pumped when the pizza showed up.
Yeah, well, I missed the pizza, but there was good coffee. Panera provided coffee.
It was.
So,
and
then the Jeep Brigade came through. There was like 20 Jeeps that came through. It was really, really cool.
Filled with rubber ducks.
Yep.
It'll be 25 and windy that day.
Last year, because I'll be out of town for basketball, but the last time I did it, it was like 5 degrees.
Yeah.
Last year I heard it was really nice.
It was decent.
Bad.
It wasn't bad. And
About
I know
40.
we kind of going back and forth coming inside because Reese wanted to see the studios, and then we ended up watching a little bit of the Big 12 championship game in here too. So a little bit
remember
of that.
this.
Did you?
I had to go back out.
Did you go Christmas shopping with the toys that were being donated?
No. Although he did want them.
We had a part timer. One of the first years we did this.
Oh no!
They liked something.
And they took it?
And they took it.
You act surprised.
No.
That's radio in the nutshell.
Man. No, so it was fun because some people would give him like a toy to take over to the Marines.
He thought it was for him.
And he would have a tough time letting it go at first when I had to explain to him what the concept was of what we're doing here. Then he grasped it. And then he loves
charity.
He loves the military. He's a big fan of the Marines. So if he sees, whether they're in the Army, Air Force, Marines, if he sees them in the uniform, he's like in awe. So
you got to
they could tell him anything and he would have been like, "Yeah, cool." So he was good. Yeah, he was good.
Stripes, great movie for a kid.
I'll give him a couple of years before we watch Stripes or Full Metal Jacket.
Joel says, I'm hoping to see some more mesh concepts mixed in.
Okay.
You guys don't realize Holgerson's going to tell Satterfield to run more screenplays.
Mm-hmm. Tunnel screens.
The Jays are back in action tonight, beginning at 8 o'clock tonight. Stay up to watch UTRGV. There's more middays and afternoon, of course, because the hosts are more involved with Creighton Athletics than, you are, but I am not.
With baseball. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, I am.
Does it
Look
seem
good in that blue quarter zip.
Does it seem, I think a lot of the immediate predictions are Sweet 16, which are reasonable.
Should be an
Doesn't it
expectation.
seem like the start of the season is a little subdued from the Creighton perspective? Not from the people that are involved,
right?
Because today is Christmas.
Yeah. Andrew was pumped.
But just kind of like the fans and chatter and people even here that are diehard Creighton fans. Like, hey, it's hoop season, but not, I can't wait. This is going to be unbelievable. You should be excited. Have you seen after you get past the 4 mid-major games to start?
Oh, yeah.
By the way, do not overlook Kansas City. Kansas City will be a really good matchup for Creighton. I'll be curious to see how Kansas City plays against them. But then you get into banger.
Schedule.
You
awesome.
get KU, you get Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, UConn down the road, but that's conference play. It's a good non-con schedule. Just seems just an observation. This has nothing to do with what their expectations are. Just seems from just rather subdued.
Ho-hum.
Yeah, okay, the season is here tonight. We got basketball.
And last year, I
there's
felt
there's
like
a lot of stuff going on, so maybe people are a little preoccupied. Or maybe Nebraska football has been good a little bit longer this year.
We got more action tonight.
Well, remember last year, too, coming off of the near miss of making the Final Four, I think there was a lot of anticipation about even getting the season started last year. I'm always curious on how you end the previous season, what that means for the overall excitement level going into the next season. Because remember, that was like, okay, they've got everybody back that was essentially a foul away from going to the Final Four. Now you've got a couple of those guys back, but they made the Sweet 16. They didn't get beyond that. And a lot of people, hell, they were kind of a sweetheart team going into the Final Four in a lot of preseason predictions last year. I did see one. I think it was Lenardi
has Creighton as a Final Four team.
As a Final Four, but not the same type of buzz about this being a Final Four team as it was a year ago. So I wonder if that has also made its way into the local fan base, at least for now.
It shows you that college basketball starts way too early.
Yep.
College basketball needs to wait a couple of weeks.
I think that's the number one.
It's always around Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Maui, Great Alaska Shootout.
It's gonna be tough to have sports conversations for the rest of the week. Like people to re-engage people into sports and get excited. Well, I think that is whether you had a good day or a bad day yesterday.
Well, the college football impact is it's got its fingerprints all over the start of college basketball. One of the great showcase event that college basketball does is the Champions Classic. What do they do in between games 1 and 2? They had the college football playoff reveal. I'm sure they'll do the exact same thing this year too. So there still has a major college football element, even in the big not preseason, but non-conference showcase event for college basketball. So yeah, college football has a lot to do with this.
Who would have thought that a open exhibition would have more interest than the opening night?
Yeah,
from Creighton's perspective, if you're looking at it from they played Purdue,
mm-hmm.
That was fun. I mean, that was
you have a night
you play UTRGV.
Yeah, that's kind of a buzzkill.
Sell you an RV.
Go from Purdue. Even some of the secret scrimmages,
well,
have more enticing matchups.
That's why maybe this Creighton team, even with the Baby Jays, are a little bit further along because you did play Iowa State in a closed scrimmage, and Iowa State's a Final Four team. Fight me on that. And then you played Purdue. I don't know, just some dude has nothing to do with the season.
Yeah.
But it will be different not to see Shireman.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, that is a huge departure. Two NBA guys, but Shireman. I think this will be the year that you already know that Shireman's impact in 2 years at Creighton. It will be reiterated in even more of what he did on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, you're right, especially defensively.
All right, Austin Jacobson will have Blue Jay shoot around at 6, and then, of course, John will have all the play-by-play. Jimmy Allen's on the post-game to take your calls and all that good stuff as the basketball season is officially here on The Zone with tonight's game. Remember, transitive property guy, you're rooting for UTRGV to only lose by like 15.
Yep. Or for that thing to be attention convention, as you like to say, in the 4-minute media, the final 4-minute media.
And then go over the top and go, you know what? That game on that Friday night on the 22nd of November, I got Nebraska -4. The line is 30.5 tonight.
Uh-huh.
If you happen to go the wrong way around the Chai and you end up on the other side of the river, 30.5.
Which tends to happen.
30.5.
What was it, 23.5 for Nebraska?
Pedestrian bridge.
Okay.
Good teams win. Great teams cover. Nebraska's just good.
They're good. Is that good enough?
Brandon Vogel from Counter Read next. Office Space is getting so much run today.
It is, and it should.
We welcome in our good friend Brandon Vogel from counterread.com. Are you a fan? Have you consumed Office Space many times during your life?
I have many times, but it's been a while. But yeah, I think the first time I saw that movie, knowing it was from Mike Judge, it just kind of like came out of nowhere. It's kind of a little movie, and like, oh, this is really excellent, and didn't really know the kind of long tail it would have as sort of a cultural institution. So, but here we are in Nebraska. We got outside consultants. I guess now inside, but let's do it.
As we were talking about during the break too, Mike Judge, who has an appearance, he's the shift manager at Tchotchkes there as well. And if I were to say to you, corporate accounts payable, Nina speaking, just a moment, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so which one of the Bobs got your attention yesterday? Whether it was Snow or Holgorsen? I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but which one of the Bobs will be more impactful for the immediate future as opposed to down the road?
Well, it needs to be Holgorsen, whether it will be or not. The Snow piece is interesting. For the most part, the defense is fine. Like they gave up 20 points to UCLA, which is more than I would have expected. But you take out that pick six, and you got to be able to win games with that. So that one struck me as a little bit of a, hey, we're going to keep things equal here. We're bringing in somebody on both sides. But I mean, the story here, as you guys well know, is Holgorsen, which I think is interesting on a number of fronts. He is a avowed fan of Red Bull. This Nebraska offense needs a can of Red Bull. Might not be a long-term fix.
Yeah.
But he might be that guy. I'm actually optimistic about what he could do. Because you need somebody who kind of comes in and is just like, here's who I am. Like I'm not afraid to step on toes. Here's what I see.
Yeah. So I posed a question earlier. It's a friend. They were tight in the Big 12. There was a dabbling in January, just the timing and didn't work out. So you bring in a friend to kind of help you look at some things that you're seeing that maybe they validate that you're seeing. So that takes care of Matt Rule. We put Satterfield aside. But how much of an impact, and we don't know what the future is for Dana, but it kind of is leading you down the road that we'll turn this into a full-time job. How much of an impact do you think he will have with Dylan Raiola and Glenn Thomas and that whole thing of Glenn Thomas has some nice quarterbacks on his resume. Holgorsen has more. They've got to get the current quarterback comfortable. How much of an impact do you think he'll make at that position?
Yeah, writing about this for tomorrow's newsletter, but in a lot of ways, I think Holgorsen is strong in areas where Nebraska is currently weak. And like we can look at the air raid piece of this. I mean, he played for Hal Mummy and Mike Leach as they were developing that. Like he's as much in that group as you can be. And you can look at that and say, well, Nebraska's having trouble running the ball. They want to run the football in the fourth quarter. They want to run the ball in November. And that's all true. But Holgorsen, in addition to being an OC and a head coach, has always been a QB or a wide receivers coach. And I think those two positions at Nebraska have been particularly out of sync in Big Ten play. So the hope would be you can help there a little bit of just coming in and kind of saying, here's what I see. Maybe as simple as being like, here's what I think your 8 to 10 best plays are. Let's run those. Because I think we saw a little bit during UCLA with what they did and didn't run. Nebraska has struggled to find those plays.
I wanted to throw this in. I don't know if this will be part of that whole evaluation of this offense or not. Gary and I have talked about this many, many times. We feel like this offense is actually doing something when they are in tempo, when they are a little bit more of that sense of urgency. Is that something that should already be well known amongst the current group without a Dana Holgorsen? And if for whatever reason it's not been the case or they don't want to do that, is that something that a fresh perspective could also suggest that maybe is now finally put into action?
Yeah, I think that's the hope. I mean, it's a fair question to ask of like, how much can an analyst / consultant come in and like really change? But I do think there's the potential for a meaningful impact over 3 games that are remaining this year. Um, the tempo piece of it, like I could see Holgerson definitely wanting to up that a little bit. Is it a little? I view it as a slight negative that Nebraska's had some success but has been unwilling to go there. That said, I'm not that surprised by it with kind of like the overarching picture of how they want to play and presumably win football games. So I think best case scenario, a guy comes in and is like, well, if I were on the opposing sideline, I'd be glad you didn't do this, and maybe that gets home a little bit as it pertains to tempo.
So let's take out the offensive side of adding another set of eyeballs, and let's just talk about the offense through 9 games, and especially on the heels of what happened Saturday, where there was some execution breakdowns. When you sit up high, as you've done before, you can see things open up, and you're like, there it is, and it doesn't happen. And you're like, it's a terrible play call, somebody might say, and you're like, no, I look great play design. Frost would have this as well. I thought Frost was really good at designing route trees, but they never came to fruition for whatever reason. What do you think, trying to put your finger on the 9 games this year, and just 9 games this year, because last year you had a different quarterback than you kind of planned for. What do you think Nebraska is trying to be offensively, where they haven't been able to grab an identity and it becomes a hodgepodge, and then it becomes some good, some bad, more bad? Is it players? Is it coaches? What in your mind, watching 9 games, Brandon, do you think Nebraska wants to be offensively?
I mean, not to verge into coach terms, but I think they do want to be pretty multiple and balanced. Like, I think when you see those plays that you're talking about, Gary, and like I see them too. Sometimes you can see them on TV. If you watch the All 22, you can really see them, and you definitely see them from above. There are guys open, and there have been clear instances, really from Indiana on, for the most part. Like Dylan had a pretty good passing game against Illinois. And Purdue, they moved the ball. But as the competition level has stepped up, um, it's just he's struggled to, I think, see things. Like there are guys open, and in some cases, I think there are guys open that it's what's supposed to be the first or second read. Like I'm not a coach, so I don't want to go too far down that level. But like that's how it looks with some of those play designs. So in some ways, it's how do you fix that for a guy who's just struggling a little bit? Now, I think the book on Nebraska in Big Ten play has been you just pressure Raiola. You don't have to be that worried about the run game hurting you. Oh, and also like one of the key anecdotes to pressure, the screen game isn't all that good either. So in a lot of ways, it's like, hey, you'll let Raiola, make a pretty good throw under duress and Ja'Cory Barney make a great catch. But if that's what you're limiting Nebraska to, those are 50-50 plays at best. So that's kind of become how teams have chosen to attack this offense, and they haven't shown the ability to relieve pressure through any of the typical outs there.
Brandon, because you look at these things through a pretty precise lens. I want to go back to one of the main developments early on with this offense, and we've seen it since try to be stabilized, but this might be a gut feeling. What type of situation offensively do you think Nebraska's in if it's as simple as Turner Corcoran doesn't get injured at left tackle? If left tackle is a little bit more stable, and I don't want to put Gunnar Gatula because I think he's made some strides, but just that area alone of what they wanted to do offensively, and then you lose not one but 2 guys that you were hoping to get some good reps out of at that position.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can discount that because even with Teddy, even though he's been injured a couple times, like he's been in the program for a while, that's still losing 2 veteran players and putting a redshirt freshman who I think on the whole has played pretty well at a tough spot in there. So yeah, it probably helps you deal with some things like just recognize things a little bit more. I mean, not only have teams decided to dial up the pressure on Raiola, but they've had more success in Big Ten play. So I don't think you can underestimate just what it would mean to have those guys. That said, while the pressure has been a problem, it's only been part of the problem, I think, as we've looked at Nebraska, basically in October, and that first game against UCLA.
Hey, you want to take a stab at what you think the opening line will be for Nebraska USC?
Yeah, I'm guessing it'll be USC by about a touchdown is where I would assume. They're still rated pretty high in a lot of these power ratings. A little bit too high in my opinion, but they got that dangerous offense. It'll be interesting. That's not a traditional home field advantage, particularly in a season where USC is facing an even bigger existential crisis than Nebraska might be right now. But I would guess it'll be USC by about 6 or 7.
See, they're trying to get that 5th one, and then their 6th one, they would circle UCLA just like Nebraska was. So it's a bit also. Now, the backup quarterback element does what to you and we'll talk next week too, leading up to that game, but now having a new quarterback making that change, what was your reaction to that yesterday?
Excuse me. Yeah, I think when you fast forward this a little bit to that game with Maava, more of a run threat. And USC, like we think of Lincoln Riley and quarterbacks for good reason, but when it's struggled this year, it's been because the run game hasn't been quite good enough. So now all of a sudden you insert the quarterback in that to a greater degree than they've had previously. That's, I think, a significant wrinkle and perhaps concern for Nebraska. That at least you have a bye week to prepare for it a little bit, and you can go back and see what he did at UNLV. But yeah, it complicates things, I think, was my gut reaction.
You mentioned you're working on something for tomorrow. What do we have during the bye week on counterread.com?
Yeah, so Aaron dipped in a little bit to women's basketball on Tuesday, so that's still up on the site for everybody to read. And then tomorrow, I'm digging into some of this Holgorsen stuff. Like I said, I think it's a pretty intriguing and high ceiling move for Nebraska, given all the circumstances. So get into all the reasons why for that tomorrow at Counter Read. So get signed up now and get that in your inbox right away at 6 a.m.
That is in your wheelhouse because there is a lot of numbers about his offensive efficiency at a couple of different spots in the Big 12.
Yep, he's put up points a lot of plays. I mean, 5 out of his 6 offenses as a coordinator were over 40 points. So that's just one. You boil it down to that, and that's what wins games.
Hey, great stuff, my friend. Great stuff as always on counterread.com with you and Aaron. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a good.
That's Brandon Vogel, who's always got the best backdrop of anybody that joins us. Sorry, Jay Moore.
Could you hear the birds in the background chirping a little bit too? He must have the window open.
Must be nice in Tennessee today.
It must be. Yeah.
All right. Coming up tomorrow, Steve Sipple will stop by. Sarah Baker Hansen will be back in. Brian Edwards. Whole crew will be here. We'll have a little bit of a split show between you and myself.
Travel day.
It
starts.
Basketball is here. Enjoy a Creighton game. We'll talk about the Jays tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And transitive property guy and gal will come in.
Where was Creighton at in the final 4-minute media compared to where Nebraska was?
Who will have left early from the arena to beat traffic?
I can tell you.
For Jimmy, for Nick, I'm Gary. Crossover with Connor Haber shows coming up next. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6.